Your mother was a broken down tub of junk with more gentleman callers than the operator.
Nobody talks that way about my mother. Nobody! Okay, little broken down runt. Looks like you're gonna get broken down even more.
Sly Cooper and his gang have blessed our screens since 2002. The games follow Sly and his crew engaging in a series of heists across the globe. The anthropomorphic raccoon, a master thief, and his pals Bentley the Brains and Murray the Brawn were responsible for some of my fondest memories of games growing up. In each game, the gang roll through different parts of the globe targeting different villains who just so happen to have something we want. The cel-shaded visuals and the stealthy gameplay really take you into a different world. And that's without even mentioning the engaging storylines that sometimes span past the games themselves. Seriously, I didn't expect such rich character development alongside twists and turns in games like this, and it was probably the first game I was exposed to written so well. Sly and his team are charming, witty, and despite being thieves have a strict code and moral compass that makes you root for them against the many colourful villains they'll be against. Whether it's recovering the pages of the thieving handbook his ancestors put together, stopping an ancient evil from being reborn, or setting up for a grand heist and recruiting new members to the gang, I was hanging off the edge of my seat the whole time. This video is going to be focusing on the original trilogy and not really mentioning Thieves in Time. Despite my fun playing it, the story within 1 to 3 is just so well crafted on its own. Sly is a grand thief, really budding for that master thief title, and he's the last member of the Cooper clan. A long lineage of thieves going back to Egyptian times, or caveman times if we include the 4th game. Sly has a lot of respect for those that came before him, and the games are filled with him trying to live up to this prestigious family name. He's assisted by his friends, who had all met in an orphanage following Sly's parents' murder by the Fiendish Five. They do their first big heist to rob cookies from the matron of the orphanage, and the rest is history. There's a big focus on teamwork, humour, and an immense wealth of emotional development and nuance for a game about anthropomorphic animals robbing things. This video is going to explore the storylines of the original trilogy as said, and we're going to focus on the first game first, uncovering its depth and charm. Now let's find out exactly what happened in the Sly Cooper trilogy and expect spoilers from here on out. Feel free to use chapters to zip about. I imagine this is going to be a massive video. If something does call back to an earlier game, I will mention it at that section. Sly 1 is a great little action platformer. It plays like a Spyro game in the sense that you're going through portals to collect a resource in each mission, usually to some outlandish backdrop. Right, there you go, with that mess out the way, we can get to the real story in Sly 2. I'm joking of course, but the story format definitely changes when we hit Sly 2. And as such, it makes it really hard to tell a cohesive story about the first game. It's really bare bones for the most part, focusing more on the gameplay, so just bear that in mind if it seems a bit threadbare. The writing does take centre stage in later titles. Sly 1 opens up to our little raccoon friend running around, specifically in Paris, France, as the Cooper gang need to break into Interpol HQ to steal a file from Inspector Carmelita Fox. A little in-out job without much explanation. The games vary slightly, but the overall controls are the same. It's a third-person adventure platformer. Sly is a master thief, and as such, he sees little blue auras around anything he can use a thief move on. This could be anything from climbing pipes to shimmying across tight spaces, or even landing on tight points and using a ninja spire jump. We follow Sly as he drops down an air vent, avoiding lasers as we go, and using a fortunately open window to get into the inspector's office. There's not many pleeks around. Now the files we're after seem to have something to do with Sly, being as his picture is plastered all over the front. We leave a little calling card, as all good thieves do, and immediately get routed by Carmelita. It turns out the two have history, and there's a little bit of romantic tension as they talk.
Criminal! You foolish raccoon. I've caught you red-handed.
Ah, Carmelita. I haven't seen you since I gave you the slip in Bombay.
Which reminds me, you need to return the Firestone of India to its rightful owners.
And I was gonna give it to you as a little token of my... Hey, you know, that bazooka really brings out the color of your eyes. Very fetching.
You think? This pistol packs a paralyzing punch. You ought to try...
Carmelita blasts at us as we escape her office, and finally we find out why the files are important to the gang. Sly wants to avenge his family and regain a lost heirloom treasure. He explains that he came from a long line of thieves who specialise in stealing from criminals. They see thieving as a bit of an art form, not as something to do just for the cash, and if you can launch a heist on a master criminal, then you yourself must be a master thief. Each member of the lineage added to the book, called the Thievius Raccoonus, and during Sly's youth, his home was ransacked by a group called the Fiendish Five, who dispatched his parents. They stole the book and split the pages, each of the villains disappearing to opposite ends of the earth. Sly's then put into an orphanage, and that's where he met Bentley and Mary. In Sly 1, they planned to steal these pages back from the Fiendish Five, with each level taking centre stage on a different villain. Not only as a rite of passage, that they may become master thieves themselves, but to recover the book and make sure the legacy of the Coopers doesn't end with Sly. From this point, the game breaks out into these 5 chapters, with missions in each section set up to either disrupt some sort of scheme or to get them closer to their quarry. Chapter 1 focuses on Sir Raleigh the Frog, a young nobleman who, on a whim, tried his hand at a bit of piracy, becoming addicted to crime and joining the Fiendish Five as their chief mechanist. He's on an island located in the Welsh Triangle near the UK, and has continued his pirate pursuits, no doubt using some knowledge found within the Thievius Raccoonus. Now, unlike the other games, instead of the levels playing out as a series of interconnected missions, they're a bit more disjointed, like the portals from the Spyro games, where the levels tend not to link together too much outside of their central location and overall theme. I'm much keener on Sly 2 and 3's approach. I think I've flogged that dead horse. It does make for an easier to tell story, rather than a series of interconnected key hunts leading to a final boss encounter. It's really Spyro-like in that regard, but I promise this story does improve over time. Sly is the field man, and as such he leads the charge in most of the levels. He skulks around the entrance to Raleigh's compound, dodging various security measures including guards, spotlight turrets and gates, and we've got a Crash Bandicoot style health system which you'll notice, where one shot will take us out unless we've got some sort of health charm. We do spot Raleigh's hideout though during this approach, and it's suitably high tech for the Fiendish Five's mechanist. It's a giant blimp that doubles as a weather machine, providing suitable bad weather for ships to crash in the Welsh Triangle and his goons to loot them dry. As far as piracy goes, he's not giving them a fair chance, so it's incredibly dishonourable, and we'll be making him pay for that. The weather is suitably dishonourable to match as we head further in, crossing all manner of hastily put together construction. Giant pipes, a spinning dam. The art has this scuffed and angular charm to it, like a Nightmare Before Christmas. It's all Burton-esque in its angles and proportions, very cartoonish in all the right ways. It's something the game goes on to be known for. In each level, there are clue bottles stashed around that we can smash. Collecting them allows Bentley to do some analysis and give us a code for a safe in the region.
Is 792.
Usually containing a page of the Thievius Raccoonus or some sort of power-up. The first of these pages is old Drake Cooper's fast attack dive move. You don't really get much exposition on the actual Cooper or what they used it for, but the power-ups tend to be quite worthwhile for finding the bottles, though you can expect it gets a bit fiddly combing the different areas. The grounds of Raleigh's compound form a bit of a crescent with guards patrolling and the blimp floating above the place. To actually get to the blimp, Sly needs to sneak through an electrified pipe, destroying a generator that's locked up with keys to make it safe first. We need to find these keys through portals to other levels, which form sections of Raleigh's compound. Sadly, there's not too much plot-wise in these, so forgive me if I do a bit of a half gloss of them. Before we enter, Raleigh gloats about the success of his storm generator in sinking the ships, telling his guards to keep the boilers powering at a full mast. Now we are going to gloss over a few of these levels, so first we go through the engine room of the weather power plant, sneaking through with some acrobatic flair and avoiding the water underneath, as Sly never learnt to swim. There's a key at the end, and Sly Cooper's raccoon roll move is in the safe there, and it's suitably goofy to use. Next is a jaunt through Raleigh's vaults, with all this wondrous treasure dotted around, and a rather ingenious laser security measure with a beam that will chase us around other lasers we've got to dodge. The key there is easy to grab after a bit of leapfrogging. Then it's Raleigh's library, where we make good use of the time old method of jumping into a barrel to dodge some dart traps he's got set up. This level's especially interesting, where you have to walk a barrel around with you for the whole level, clearing paths to get through with it, and using it to avoid the dart traps in key positions. Then there's the boiler room, the power source for the store machine, and it's a bit of a pit of fire. Fire-related traps, guards that spit fire, and some careful jumping around fiery lava. With all the keys, we can disable the electric tunnel and actually make progress towards Raleigh's Blimp. Bentley's found a way up to the Blimp, with us having to shoot our way using one of the mounted pirate cannons. There's 2 more keys we'll need to find to do this. The first is hidden within a ship graveyard where Raleigh's goons are picking the crashed vessels for loot. We have to navigate across a load of smashed vessels to get through. Then we need to use a submarine to steal a load of chests from crabs to get us the next key. There's a few of these vehicular levels throughout the game, and they're probably my least favourite parts. They're very gimmicky and hard to control. With those keys grabbed, we can get to the cannon itself. Now, I started the series with Sly 2 and only played Sly 1 years after, so I was always a bit biased against it. They, again, handle the narrative a little bit differently. But one thing I do love about Sly 1 is we managed to get a variety of different levels, all telling pieces of a story about our villain. In this case, we fought through the machinery that powers the storm machine, and through not only his vaults but where the crashed ships end up. We get this nice cause and effect, full picture and understanding of Raleigh's operations as we progress through. Once we're in the cannon, we get to speak to the big frog himself.
The only thing is, I hate unexpected guests.
Listen, Raleigh, wipe up my family and steal what's mine? You better expect company.
Oh, I'm ever so sorry. How sloppy of me not to finish the job.
Now, Raleigh is not happy with the unexpected guest at his door. He's more angry that he left a job unfinished and didn't snuff Sly out alongside his parents. He comes at us, bloating into a big balloon of a frog, and tries to squash us. Just jump around the platforms and hit him when he eventually shrinks. He can't keep it up forever. You do this several times, but with various different permutations, so different platforms will start to fall and that sort of thing.
It's all, you've beaten me. Well, gloat all you want, Sly Cooper. You're no match for Mugshot, my villainous cohort.
We steal back the book, and Raleigh warns us against his colleague Mugshot, who also has some pages we'll need to get from him. The pages we stole back tell us of Ryoichi Cooper and his ninja spire jump, used in the olden days against the emperors of feudal Japan. Sly and the gang then escape to England with Inspector Fox hot on their tail, arresting Raleigh, and then it's off to Mesa City in the US to go for Mugshot. Mugshot has set up shop in Mesa City, a bit of a knockoff Las Vegas. He's the muscle of the Fiendish Five. Originally a runt of his litter, he found friendship in the characters he saw on the movie screen. After seeing a particularly moving gangster flick, he decided that was the dream for him, working out to the point where he now walks around on his hands. Raleigh said his domain was locked up tight, so tight even that not even a snake could sneak in undetected. Both figuratively and literally, we rock up to the outskirts of the city and it's just us and the tumbleweeds, as the front gate is boarded shut on the road in. The gang expected the place to be all loud and busy, but it seems more like a ghost town, not the sort of Las Vegas knockoff we were expecting. Mugshot's antics have either ran everyone out or pushed them to the centre of town. It's definitely not a tourist destination anymore though. We make use of Ryoichi's spire jump crossing lights as we start to make a move. The whole place has a completely different tone to Raleigh's compound, with all the machinery being replaced by broken cars, tyres hanging around. It's like working your way through a junkyard, and given Mugshot and all of his gang are dogs, this makes sense, right? Dogs love a junkyard. His goons are all quite doggish too, with some being chained up and others throwing cards at us. The place has a very unique feel. When we actually pierce the city itself, it's all wonky apartment buildings flanking this giant casino.
Given that he's a bulldog, it seems only reasonable to assume that he'd choose to live in a giant fire hydrant.
The office on top of the casino is actually a giant fire hydrant. They really pushed the dog angle. It really reminded me a lot of the Courage the Cowardly Dog episode with all the dog people. The casino itself is all boarded up, and on approach we hear Mugshot say how his gang pushed everyone out of town to set up shop with a casino. A bit counterintuitive, but to exacerbate things, the place has been boarded shut on account of Carmelita snooping around. We need to unlock a chained up hot rod to get past the barriers. Many of the levels involve venturing into parts of the casino separate from the main joint, including giving some machine gunners a slip, jumping across old roulette tables, and across roulette wheels. It seems while taking over, Mugshot actually flooded his competitors' casinos to push them out. We get our first experience of Murray being the field man as we provide covering fire for him making his way to a key. These missions crop up from time to time and are simple enough, even if the camera seems to fight against us as we make our shots. Murray was traditionally the doer of the group, but he seems quite weak in this game. He does have a nice race mission though, as he's making a hot dog lunch stop, requiring him to use his expert rally skills to muscle past goons. Sly does meet up with Carmelita, and it seems Mugshot's tip-off was right as we give her a little bit of riz while she chases us for a rooftop scene.
Crosshairs, Sly Cooper.
About time you showed up, Miss Fox. I was getting worried about you. Thought you took a wrong turn somewhere back in Paris.
The only one making wrong turns is you, Sly. I'd suggest you surrender before I paralyze you with my good friend, the shock pistol.
Now see, a girl whose best friend's a firearm's got issues. A little dinner, a little dancing. I think I can help you out.
Everything here is still having this casino theme to it. Some of the levels even delving into Psychonauts territory with the seemingly alien architects that went into putting these levels together. We give her the slip again, moving through some back alleys, all in the pursuit of keys. They give us a somewhat 2D level here, which is a nice change of pace, and it was quite fun. When we eventually make it through these levels and unlock a secret elevator hidden behind a giant sculpture of Mugshot's head, we can see the big man himself.
What? My boys have been yapping about some big mysterious dude running around cracking skulls and this is it? You're the monkey wrench in my operation?
His boys have been yapping about a big mysterious guy smashing skulls, and he's not exactly impressed with our physique. The penny drops and he realises we're Sly Cooper. Despite him seemingly being unable to read the Thievius Raccoonus, he refuses to give it over, citing how we smashed through his operation and personally transgressed against him. He's too large for us to fight directly, so we need to flip over a series of mirrors while he shoots at us to focus all the light on him. Think of the ants under a magnifying glass on a summer's day gimmick. He's actually pretty accurate with those guns, but we can use our roll move to dodge underneath them. When we do eventually take him out, he's flabbergasted that someone so small could beat someone so large and imposing. We've ticked 2 off our list in terms of avenging our parents, as he directs us to Haiti, where his colleague Miss Ruby resides. Carmelita books Mugshot and his boys, even gets her photo on the front page of the paper, and the Cooper gang have a bit of a holiday in the rest of Las Vegas, and then return to Paris as they plan their journey over to Haiti.
While me and the boys, well, we enjoyed the rest of our stay in America, and then returned to Paris, ready for our next mission.
Miss Ruby is our third member of the Fiendish Five, the infamous voodoo priestess who was born into a family of mystics. She scared the other children around her with her strange nature, but once she learned to raise the dead, that provided all the friends she could possibly ever need. When she became an adult, she got revenge on the world for fearing her, becoming the chief mystic of the Fiendish Five, and their source on any laws of nature that she could break. She disappeared into obscurity, into the Haitian jungle. She's one of the sadder villains. Raleigh was just a bit of a bored nobleman. Mugshot and her both share a troubled upbringing of being outcast and getting bullied, and it does make you feel for them somewhat. They're evil, but evil for a reason. We approach the swamp on foot similar to the rest of the zones, and we learn of Bentley's squeamishness to anything bacterial as we start getting further in.
That's not the problem. This swamp is oozing with disgusting mold and bacteria.
Suck it up, Bentley. We got work to do.
Well, all right then. Don't forget to use the new move you learned from...
We use the move of one Tennessee Kid Cooper, originally meant for sliding along railways, to slide across slippery vines we find within. Lurching around into another quite contrasting locale of a spooky swamp filled with skulls, candles, mosquitoes and spiders. We're entering the den of a voodoo priestess, not a gangster or a mechanist. There's an interesting challenge on the approach to sneak around a load of voodoo spotlight guards to smash a load of candles that are powering a force field. They won't see us unless we step into their spotlights, but they can whomp us at range. And if we alert one, we alert most of them. Bentley warns us away from this, saying they'll shrink our head to the size of a pea. With all the candles gone, we can stroll into Miss Ruby Swamp's dark centre. She's in a giant alligator skull temple, and to get a crack at her, we need to find a way in. You know the way it works by now. Find a ton of keys, unlock a route to the boss room. I was always slightly confused by this boss room, because where the hell did she get a skull that large? Our first mission is to go into the lair of the beast, some unknowable creature locked behind an industrial-strength voodoo gate. Sly and Bentley theorise on whether something is trying to be kept out or be kept in. Spoilers, something's in there. We climb around the gate and then start sliding around the interior until eventually the reeds part and we get chased by some cross between an oriental dragon and the creature from the Black Lagoon. It forms a bit of a time trial in itself as it will keep coming at us as we run from it. Some nimble acrobatics are all we need. A few of the levels here are just to traipse through a creepy swamp. The next level is a haunted one where the trees themselves will come to life and attack us. There's these headstones that will spawn ghosts to chase after us until they're smashed. The developers weren't against giving big scope to their villains. We've dealt with machinery, we've dealt with just random dog thugs, and now we're dealing with the supernatural. There's various permutations in this level of jump over stuff or avoid enemies while we smash these headstones, eventually leading us out to get a key. With 3 keys, we unlock a side gate to the beast's lair and it helpfully smashes open a door for us to advance. This isn't the last time we'll make use of a big creature to do something, as we'll see later in Sly 3. Miss Ruby has turned the swamp itself into a giant voodoo cauldron, and we need to unlock her giant stirring apparatus to get up to her lair. We go through some more spooky swamps without much to comment on, besides the cool decor of course. We use a small hovercraft to fire at our goons, probably constructed by Raleigh as he was their mechanist. And then we have to deal with a ghost with dubious loyalty, making a deal to catch a load of chickens to make the ultimate gumbo. Of course, it's not that simple, as we're chased by roosters with bombs tied to them, and there's a time limit, of course. It's a bit of an annoying section, but an entertaining one nonetheless. We also use the hoverboard from earlier to light up a load of tiki heads to get the last key. This involves chasing around a load of piranha to use their oily carcasses as fuel for the flamethrower attachment. Then we use the centre of the cauldron to hop up to Miss Ruby herself.
Coming most distastefully bad juju.
She apparently could feel our vibes coming. The actual fight against her consists mostly of a beat game here, which I've read has had a lot of mixed reception from the fan base. I believe in the remaster they actually desynced the music from the button prompts, making it really hard to complete. I enjoyed this initially, the original permutation, but fail any of the segments and you're back to the beginning, which I did not enjoy, not one bit at all. Ruby will fire voodoo magic at us and we dodge it as we ride our servants up to her, smack her down and she complements our rhythm. Like the others in the gang, she warns us of the next member of the Fiendish Five, this time the Panda King. We learn an invisibility technique from the pages of our ancestor Sly Cooper, which was originally used against the pharaohs of the time. Ruby's arrested for the act of making zombies, apparently a national crime. The gang catch a suntan and then head over to China for our next chapter. The Panda King is one of the more interesting members of the Fiendish Five. Originally a penniless child who was fascinated by the art of fireworks, he spent a decade learning the craft, eventually heading to the nobleman who bought the things from other artisans. They couldn't see past his shabby clothes and sent him packing. Humiliated, he took revenge on the nobles by using the fireworks as a weapon. The Fiendish Five took him on as their explosives expert and were driving to Western China to face him. The best thing this game does is the direction they take the different villains. Heading to the perilous ascent, the aesthetic jumps again with Eastern style music and various monkeys and apes flanking the Chinese architecture. I never actually dug much into which species of apes these goons are meant to be, but after finding out there's a mix of gorillas, mandrills and other old world monkeys, my immersion's broken and I've uninstalled the game. It's the end of the video. I'm joking, of course. The first sight we get of the Panda King is him letting off fireworks to cause avalanches in neighbouring towns. It turns out he runs an extortion racket, and it's quite an interesting one. With Mother Nature working on his side, I can see why it's so successful. There's a big firework theme running through here, using them to open doors or as elevators at times, and I can't stress enough the love I have for the set designs of these games. It's another affair of finding keys to get to a boss. In this case, the Panda King and his giant statue fortress. We clear through his flaming Temple of Flame, real name, where he's been training his army of kung fu wielding goons. One of the most interesting sights is when we sneak over a whole mob of them training with nunchucks. The designers pay a lot of respect to Panda King and the martial arts culture as a whole, and it seems to be a big influence for him and his goons. We assist Murray in climbing a snowy hill, again using a mounted turret as he assaults some sort of temple. We're shooting fireworks this time though, and there's an interesting section towards the end of the level where we have to defend a stationary Murray from a load of guards popping out of the woodwork. There's more temples, some firework factories, and a race that we'll gloss over before getting to a lovely bit of flirting with Miss Carmelita Montoya Fox to really build the slow burn romance that me and all the BookTok girlies out there love.
Freeze, raccoon!
How can I freeze when my heart warms at the very sight of you?
Shut up, Ringtail. I don't know what you're doing here in China, but I'm sure it can't be good for whoever owns this place.
You must only have eyes for me if you're too blind to see what's going on around here.
All I see...
We ride on up on a couple of massive fireworks right to the Panda King's temple to experience his new art of flame fu firsthand. He asks us if we've just come for revenge or to steal the pages of the book back, and we tell him no, we're here to put a stop to his plans now. We'd originally come for the other stuff, but he's evil.
First, but now I'm more interested in putting an end to your avalanche extortion racket.
Why should you care if I bury a few worthless village in snow? You are a thief, just like me.
No, that...
He asks what the difference between us and him is and why should we care when we're both thieves. We correct him and tell him that we're from a long line of master thieves, not homicidal pyromaniacs such as him. He plans to make us pay for our disrespect, but to honour our ancestry, he'll use his new firework technique against us. He has one of the most memorable boss fights for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the cool kung fu angle, his floaty animations, or the sweet, sweet delivery as he shouts out his moves at us like some anime villain. Whatever it is, I have the words fiery wheel and booming chop burnt into my mind forever. Smack him down with a cane and he eventually yields, our skill with the cane being complimented as he passes out. Bentley does some big brain action and finds out the metal used to construct the hovercrafts we've been using in certain missions can only be found in the Krakarov volcano in Russia, revealing the last location for our villain. Now, this is probably the first time they've not just dry snitched on one of their colleagues. Panda King's pages included the designs from our ancestor Otto von Cooper, an accomplished pilot, and someone whose expertise could be poured into upgrading the team's van. Carmelita books the Panda King, see, no one really likes extortion, and then it's off to Russia for a slight twist on the game, no portals this time. The volcano in Russia is roosted by the most mysterious member of the Fiendish Five, Clockwerk. In several of the pages we've recovered so far, in the background of many photos is this mysterious shadowy figure that fits his silhouette. But that must be a coincidence, right? Or he would have been living for centuries back to the Egyptian times. That's all the info the intro gives us as we approach the volcano in a series of missions instead of multiple segmented ones with a big key hunt. We start with a nice drive on our approach, Sly manning a turret built using Von Cooper's plans, Murray driving and Bentley running tech support. On our drive we have to contend with a few roadside hazards, landmines, flying robo-falcons, and, oh yeah, a giant death ray. It's a fairly easy drive, but as we finish it...
Clear!
Murray, that cave doesn't look tall enough for the turret to make it all the way through.
Then we're on to getting through a security door on the far side of a cavern in a volcano. To decode the door, we need to face off against some fire slugs in trying to decrypt some falling computers. The first side to get 60 of these computers wins. Then, as Bentley says, it's finally time for some Cooper thieving and sabotage, and it's been quite overdue. We hop on out into an inner sanctum to see an old friend of ours. Bentley assumes Carmelita's been kidnapped as a trap by Clockwerk, and the scenery here is looking a bit like Raleigh's, but just 10 times more advanced. It's like we're running around a Ratchet and Clank map with how techy the place looks, or maybe even some sort of Bond villain's sanctum. It makes sense for the leader of the Five. We need to redo the shenanigans we did with the barrel back in Raleigh's area during Chapter 1. It's fairly simple, but when we go to rescue Carmelita, we get grabbed in a tank with her, and we finally hear the villain speak.
You sentimental fool. Empathy has always been the downfall of the Cooper clan.
I knew this was a trap!
Bentley is forced to do some fast and furious hacking to save Sly. We've got a little turtle avatar and we essentially need to move around like a little green turret as we avoid Clockwerk's antivirus and collect little yellow cubes of data. I've always been a fan of Bentley sections in all the games. For years, this is what I thought hackers saw on their screens. With Carmelita free, she's confused why we saved her and Sly drops some heat. She offers us some covering fire as we advance, having to steal back our family cane. But we're told once we beat Clockwerk, we're getting a 10-second head start and then Carmelita's going to arrest us. This is a bit of a rehash of the earlier Murray sections, just with Sly doing the running and Carmelita doing the turret work. You can actually pre-shoot some of the sections out here to make Sly's life a bit easier. With that out of the way, we have to climb the sinking structure of Clockwerk's death ray to grab a jetpack that Carmelita had stashed. We'll need it for later. The climb is fairly simple, even though it took me out a few times, and it's a bit of a mashup of all of Sly's learned thief moves, a trial by fire if you will, that he's learned what the Thievius Raccoonus was made to teach him, that he deserves it. With it climbed, we slap on the jetpack, and Clockwerk reveals his ugly shiny head. He lets slip that he's been chasing the Cooper family throughout time, keeping himself alive by switching his body out for unfeeling metal and fueling it with his hatred for the Cooper family. A slight oxymoron, but we'll allow it. Carmelita can blow gaps in his armour with her shock pistol, and we need to aim our rocket fire at these gaps. It's a bit of an auto-scroller bullet hell section, which was quite fun. Unless you die, then have fun doing it again from the very start. Old games can be really unforgiving. We eventually cause the old bird to plummet into the lava below, and we have to climb the wreckage of his death ray to get over to him, while he taunts us the whole time. Something I spotted was a reference to I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream, where he calls himself Am, another sentient computer that lives off pure hate alone. He really hates the Cooper clan to make that comparison. We smash the bird to pieces and take the last pages of our book back with a lovely ending cutscene. Sly had beaten his parents' killers one by one and secured their revenge. He couldn't have got there without the help of his friends either, and they make a point to stress the importance of the group coming together and the strength of friendship they've shown throughout. Carmelita also gets a mention as she starts counting down our 10 seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sly gets to kiss the woman he's been crushing over, using the distraction to get away and finishing the game. Sly 1 is a fun action platformer, there's no doubt, and it's definitely set the stage not only for a new Sony mascot, but also for the next few games to come. The gameplay's good, the aesthetics comic-like and wacky, but for me the story's still quite base level. It's a tale of friends coming together to restore the honour of Sly's legacy, and fight back against some truly evil people. It doesn't have to be more complex than that for this sort of game, but what if I told you the next two games go ham, egg and cheese with the story, focusing on it and expanding this game from an action platformer to a semi-open world heist game with intrigue, conspiracy, and more Carmelita. Stay tuned for Sly 2.
I guess the way through the wine cellar is guarded by those rats. Bentley thought you might like some help clearing them out.
Sounds like fun. You and me, back to back?
Totally. Outnumbered, fighting impossible odds. It's perfect.
All right, pal. Let's get to it.
Sly 2, the first game I played from the series, a personal Hall of Famer for me and a key part of my formative years. They really double down on the narrative in this game, making all the missions linked together, seeing more of the villains and making it an almost open world setting with a big conspiracy angle. There's loads of little mission pips on an overworld that you'll go to, rather than different portals you go into for the levels. To top it off too, we get to play as the other members of the gang, so let's get into it. Sly 2 opens up with the gang in Cairo, Sly and Bentley talking over the binocularcom. Bentley's talking in code and Sly isn't enjoying it.
No, I'm... Forget it, you're not taking this seriously.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's Bentley's first time out on the field, and he's exceptionally nervous, we can see that. The gang are here to rob Clockwerk's parts from the museum, the disembodied pieces of the robotic final villain from the last game. There's no clue why they want to steal them, but it's probably not to stick him back together. Sly uses some of the bones on show to climb up, and we get a nice flashcard introducing Bentley on the field. He's the brains of the Cooper gang, and he helps us turn off most of the security features blocking our path. Something that's pretty cool about the museum is that it's plastered with paintings of the Fiendish Five. There were banners for an exhibition on the Beasts of the World. Perhaps they're doing an exhibition on such a notorious criminal gang. It makes it even more chilling that they've got a member of the gang, Bones, on show. Sly uses some of his master thieving techniques to cross a courtyard and meet up with Murray. Murray takes his time but does make quite a grand entrance. He's had a bit of a makeover since the last game. In fact, the whole gang is really showing how far they've come in the years since Sly 1. And everything's 10 times more cinematic. Murray is the muscle and is going by The Murray now, like some sort of superhero or Mexican luchador, mask included. He puts his muscle to use and we make our way to the Clockwerk exhibit. Unfortunately, the parts are missing. Someone's beat us to the punch, and Bentley's nerves show as he asks to pull the plug on the operation in quite a desperate fashion. Carmelita, the romantic foil and cop chasing the gang, is there to bust us, accompanied by a constable this time, Neela. She drops a nugget of info that this robbery had all the signs of a claw gang job, a slip of the tongue or a hint for us perhaps. Sly sneaks away and the whole gang is chased by Carmelita, and from the get-go we can see the leaps and bounds the developers made in storytelling and graphics. We evade Carmelita in a big shootout as police cars swarm the museum underneath us. We get this bit of story playing in the foreground and in the background, a pyramid taking centre stage in our escape from Cairo. When we're in the van, we get one of those nice animated cutscenes. Sly is still fawning over Carmelita, and they give us some background on Clockwerk in case you hadn't played the last game, and it's a pretty menacing scene.
Clockwerk parts. Clockwerk. He was consumed with jealousy for the Cooper clan's thieving reputation. Is it inappropriate to refer to him as a monster? No, not at all. What kind of person stays alive for hundreds of years with the express intention of wiping out a rival's family line? Imagine the hatred fueling that first decision to replace his mortal body with soulless machinery. Ultimately, it did the trick. Clockwerk lived on.
We also get the background of the Cooper gang itself and Sly 1. Sly 2 is going to focus on us taking down members of the Claw gang and stealing back the parts of Clockwerk they've divvied up in an attempt to destroy them and stop the monster from ever being reactivated. Our first level's in France, and we'll get into that, but I just want to say how the format does change drastically in this game. Rather than it being a jaunt for a load of pools to collect keys to go to a boss fight, we're using different missions in an overworld and revisiting a lot of areas sort of over and over. Sometimes we'll be drawn to a different section of a villain's compound and it will be its self-contained little thing, but a lot of these missions take place in the overworld itself, and so you get this nice permanence of the locations you're going to. There's also a bit more investment in the villains. We get to see them throughout some of these missions and hear them talking throughout, but more so than just the comms talk we got in the last games. No longer is it a chase to get to a boss fight and that's it. These characters have real character to them. Let's get into it. The gang call in some favours and find out about the Claw gang's French member, Dimitri. Once a passionate art student, the art world wasn't exactly ready for his kinetic aesthetic, as the game calls it. He then became a forger as a way of paying the art world back, making twisted renditions of the art they loved. He's now the owner of a nightclub on the west side of Paris, a rather run-down, dirty joint that seems to be the height of fashion at the moment. He's got the Clockwerk tail feathers. God knows what he's doing with them, but let's find out. The first big switch up in these games is instead of a level approaching a villain's encampment, we just get a smooth cutscene setting the tone, and then we're on a character select screen. Throughout the course of each section, there'll be several missions to set things up for a big heist, each requiring a different member of the Cooper gang for their various specialties. We choose a character and then we can free roam until we get to a mission marker. It's semi-open world in a sense, just over a very small open world. We'll start with Sly though. Climbing onto the roof of the safe house, you can see how they've improved on the aesthetic somewhat since 1. They've kept that same wonky cartoonish feel, but they've dialed it back slightly. Everything is put together really well. A few other changes from the first game include guards that patrol the open world, and an actual health bar instead of just dying in one hit. Mission 1 has us repurposing Dimitri's satellite array, climbing up to various rooftops in Paris so that Bentley can listen in on Dimitri's communications. We're in the scoping phase of the heist here. The safe house is set up and now we're gathering information. With all the satellites in order, we get this lovely visual and then some direction to our next mission, Bentley asks us to sneak through an old wine cellar in town to get under Dimitri's nightclub. From there, we can take some recon photos and he can put a plan together. The Murray, meets us at the cellar and we fight some of Dimitri's rat goons. Murray's a much better combatant than us. He's put on some meat since the first game, but we still have some tricks up our sleeve. Murray then opens a gate for us with his strength and Bentley provides support through an earpiece. We sneak past the guards and end up at the heart of Dimitri's operation. We need to take some photos of what's going on here. It's the scoping phase after all. We snap some shots of the big lounge lizard himself and find out he's been using the Clockwerk tail feathers as printing plates for a money forging operation. A bit boring of a purpose for them, but we'll get the tail feathers back. We head back to the safe house and Bentley treats us to his plan. All of Bentley's plans come in this lovely slideshow format, which I find quite charming, with him talking over it and annotating the screen as he does.
The sum of it all renders a direct assault impossible. To solve this puzzle, I'm going to need some more intelligence.
Dimitri's nightclub is souped up with security, both physical and mechanical, and it's giving Bentley some trouble planning. We can't attack the place directly. Our next steps are twofold: bugging Dimitri's office with a forged painting, and tailing the lizard to see what we can learn about any gaps in his security. Starting with the forged painting bug, we've got a painting of Sly himself with the bug attached. We need to walk the thing to Dimitri's office without taking any damage. If we do, the painting will break. In practice, this means avoiding any of the guards roaming the overworld, which isn't hard at all. If you stick to the rooftops, you'll find a conveniently open side window to the nightclub, and you'll feel like a cat burglar while you're doing it. When we get inside, things get a bit spicier with janitor rats and floor lasers blocking our indirect approach to the office. We need to go around the rim of the room we're in. Avoiding guards is preferable, but as long as you climb quick, you can evade their attacks if you're spotted. Dimitri lets his staff know that his spice sales are up through an intercom.
Dimitri, coming at you loud and clear. I've got to high five give them to my main men working the disco. Spice sales are up. Keep on moving that spice, aye? And to every home slice down in the special big money making room. The nicest of jobs there, man, I tell you. Keep full steaming ahead with my new Clockwerk printing plates. All of us retire early. You picking up on what I'm throwing down? Peace out.
Something he's pushing through his nightclub. As a kid, I took this directly as spice, like salt and pepper, but it's obviously referring to something a bit above a PG rating. We slap the bug in his office and get out of there. Next is following the big man himself. He's hiding out in a canal boat, and an intercepted email revealed he's asked the guards to ring a bell on board when the coast is clear. When it's clear for what, I have no clue, and this never gets brought up again. Maybe he's caught wind he's got a tail, or he knows Interpol are onto him. Who knows? When he's on the move, he'll walk around the streets, occasionally turning around to look for a tail, but he's got quite a forgiving radius, so you can sit around him and just stick to the rooftops. It's a bit like Dishonored in that sense. We follow him to a secret door on the waterfront, getting just close enough to sneak a glimpse at him putting a code into a keypad. The door he's typing into leads to the nightclub's aqua pump, which Bentley lets us know could be useful for later on in the heist. The gang then send Murray down to the aqua pump. No longer a timid coward, we're not having to cover his back here. He's a proper field agent, the Murray. This persona allowing him to become the group's muscle, and his confidence is tenfold that of Murray in the first game. Bentley needs him to sabotage the aqua pump at the nightclub for some scheme to be later revealed. We make use of his muscle to throw objects at power boxes en route to the place, and this really just introduces how strong he is. He's actually strong enough to pick up all manner of furniture, and even the guards themselves. He makes expert use of this strength to throw guards into an open water main, causing the pump to malfunction. Murray is also an accomplished fighter, making his sections a mirror image to Sly's sneaky work. We get another cutaway to one of Bentley's slideshows as he tells us we have a few more jobs before the heist proper. First, disabling the security measures around the printing press, that job goes to Sly, and then Murray gets to dismantle a ton of alarm horns around the area to keep reinforcements away from the nightclub. Bentley himself will actually be going onto the field to mess with a disco ball. Of course, we need to find a way into the disco area first. Let's see how the gang does this piece by piece. Firstly, while scouting out a route into the disco, Sly crosses paths with Constable Neela. She lets us know her little slip of the tongue back in Cairo about the Claw Gang was a clue, and she knows just how dangerous Clockwerk is.
I know what a menace those Clockwerk parts are, and I don't want the likes of the Claw Gang putting them to use.
She's using us to help get the parts destroyed and put the Claw Gang behind bars. A bit of a grey area here as we follow her through Paris in a bit of a chase section, as she needs to make sure we can keep up. Literally. Getting to the disco, she lets us know that legally, as a police officer, she can't enter the nightclub without a warrant. But if she happened to misplace a key into his back door, well, she's not liable for our actions. I don't know whether to trust her yet, but Sly believes they'll work well together. Next, we get to Murray and the alarm horns, and it's a bit of Murray muscle action as we repeat the techniques from his last mission, throwing goons at some alarm stations and dealing with them by hand when they come to reinforce. Then, with the nightclub unlocked, Bentley takes to the field for the first time in Cooper history, besides the intro. He can't climb like Sly, and he doesn't have Murray's muscle power, instead relying on his small size to hide, a tranquilizer gun, and a limited supply of bombs he can drop. If you trank a guard and then bomb them, they'll die in one hit, and that's basically his sneak attack. Bentley sneaks around the disco to one of the best tracks in the whole soundtrack, and as I'm recording this audio, I hope I can put it in the video.
Hey Bentley, how you holding up out there in the field?
Fine, I'm just fine. I just need to bomb all the pillars supporting that disco ball and I can get out of here.
We potter along, putting bombs down to take out some points of weakness that keep the disco ball in the air. It drops, crashing to the centre of the dance floor, but more importantly, knocking the front sign of the nightclub loose, something apparently needed for the heist. Sly then takes control of nightclub security by pickpocketing a series of keys from the guards present. As Bentley mentions, sometimes you have to dig a little in their pockets. Only Sly can pickpocket here, so it's a suitably sneaky mission for our master thief Raccoon. Something I've not commented on is the fun difference between the different members of the Cooper gang. Their missions feel legitimately different from one another, and it makes for a nice change of pace from the previous game. Sometimes they even leverage this with certain characters out of action, forcing you to feel their loss when they're not there. Plus, having a tangible through line where we can see each mission in a single piece of a larger heist makes things a lot more exciting than the first game. Not to mention, constantly hearing our villain in most levels, it's similar to the first game, but it's so much more immersive. Bentley assists us after we get access to the security by disabling the measures in the printing press room, and then we can get to planning the heist itself. Back to another slideshow cutaway. This time it's for Operation Thunderbeak, the actual heist. I'm going to give it to you how the game gives you it, but for later heists I'm going to just hide the plan so that there's a bit more excitement when things unfold. First, Murray will help Bentley break into the old water tower to shut off a fountain outside the club. This will make a repairman come and Sly will need to steal the keys from him. Murray will then use his truck to pull down the nightclub sign. This will make a big hole into the printing press room where we can bag the feathers and get out. Seems simple, right? The heist missions were always a highlight to me as a kid, the whole gang working together in a way we've never seen before, usually involving some brilliant cinematics as we switch between scenes and perspectives. When they give us the plan in the form of a slideshow, it makes me feel like we're part of the gang. It's like we're in the room with them, and it makes it all the more better if and when things don't go to plan. To start with our turtle and hippo, they run to the water tower, taking out a couple of guards keeping watch, and then Murray throws Bentley in like he's some shelly discus. There's a ton of pipes in here we need to switch around to actually turn the fountain off, and with that done, it's then time for Sly to sneak up on the repairman and his armed entourage to pickpocket a key. Or you can rush the guards like I did. He hands off the keys to Bentley and him and Murray fire some grapples up at Sly position on top of the sign. He jumps into the printing press and this is where things go off plan. See, Bentley didn't expect Dimitri to be down here and he hits us with some fat slang.
Stop been bringing me down. So very uncool. Why can't you let birds and bees be free, bro?
Listen, Dimitri. You have no idea what you're playing with. It'll bring more than your house down.
Look, bro, I think you are a tough cowboy. A man with taste, style, vision, a connoisseur of finer things. Like me. Look, I'm sure that two cats in a bag like us can work something out. Yeah?
We try and warn him about Clockwerk, but he really just doesn't want to listen, and after being unable to negotiate, the fight begins to again one of the best soundtracks in gaming history. Again, as I'm typing this, really hope I can put the track in without getting a strike. We have to dodge his shots and give him some cane action, just hide behind some barrels until his weapon malfunctions. Eventually we smack the lizard into a printing press, freeing the feathers. The boss fight was already better than most of the boss fights in the first game. They just take it to another level here, and you'll see that with some of the future fights as well. We give him the moral lesson of what kind of thief prints money. There's no honour in that, as we make off with the tail feathers, starting a nice outro cutscene. Carmelita busts in as we can expect, missing us. She then arrests Dimitri, and the gang go for a little break in Monaco as we plan our next heist. Now, there was actually meant to be a chapter 2 for Dimitri in Monaco, but they just ran out of time when they were trying to develop that. But it's interesting it made it into the outro cutscene. Anyway, chapter 2. Chapter 2 takes place in India. The mysterious spice lord known as Rajan is our next quarry. A self-made man who sold illegal spices on the black market, growing this business and crowning himself as Lord of the Hills. He goes to great lengths to convince others of his royalty, but it's all more to convince himself. He's hosting a ball at his recently bought ancestral home to show off the Clockwerk wings. All a big act to bring him prestige, but as Sly says,
it's mostly to convince himself.
Our safe house this time is on the cusp of the jungle outskirts to this quote-unquote ancestral home. This brings its own challenges, including the fact that at present, with the drawbridges up, only Sly can access the place. We do some parkour, avoiding the monkey, elephant and goat guards below us as we go straight into the recon photo op. Rajan has welded the Clockwerk wings onto a giant statue. Not only are they heavy, but this is in the centre of a grand ball. Bentley spots a winch that could be useful in getting them out, but we'll need to make a massive distraction when it comes to heist time. Rajan himself is there, the big tiger, and we're asked to take some photos of his guests. We see Arpeggio, the exotic tech member of the Claw Gang, Jean Bisson, a Canadian shipping baron and also a member of the gang, but we do see a few do-gooders in the crowd. Firstly, there's Spider, the Contessa, a high-ranking prison warden for Interpol, who's probably working undercover alongside Constable Neela and Carmelita to expose the underground spice ring. So not only do we need to somehow get the wings off the statue, we need to get them past several high-ranking members of Interpol in a giant ballroom. Bentley's initial plan involves using some serious misdirection, but he doesn't let on just yet what the steps will be. The baby steps include getting rid of some of Rajan's extra security using Murray, and getting Sly to lower the drawbridge to start us off. The winch is all locked down, and so Sly has to do some pickpocketing across the whole compound. It's a good experience to get a lay of the land. One thing that's always confused me as a kid was we see these anthro elephants as guards, but Rajan also has some what appear to be non-sentient animal elephants patrolling too. I never did quite understand the world here, and there's a few theories that some animals evolved and others didn't, but let's not get too bogged down, right? This was a kid's game at the time. Grab the keys, undo the winch, and one of the keys involves us using some misdirection with a giant gong, which is worth mentioning. With the drawbridge down, both Bentley and Murray can make their way onto the field. Rajan has a giant chopper. You know, the one patrolling the skies. Murray uses an old war turret to take it down in a mounted gun section, and there's a few of these in the game that involve us taking out missiles whilst damaging some sort of enemy vehicle, in this case a helicopter, but it's no sweat for Murray. While that's going on, Sly is sent to go and sneak into the ball, and we're told we'll need a full tuxedo to get in. We actually get turned away from the door.
Sorry, sir, but we have a dress code. You got a tuxedo?
No.
Sorry, pal. No tux, no entry.
We brought a cane and our muscle lacks any pants, so why would Sly bring a tuxedo with him? The simple solution is to raid the guest house, as they come to the conclusion a few people would have overpacked and brought spares of things. We blast through a variety of rooms, some filled with guards and some not, as we collect the suit and sneak into the ballroom. Sly's blending in perfectly despite looking no different to normal. Bentley tells us the reason why Sly has been sent to the ballroom. In the big heist he's got planned, we'll be using a dance with Carmelita to distract the crowd, but she's really picky about dance partners, and so Sly has to prove himself first. Sly has a brain blast and decides to prove his skill dancing with Neela, and we've got two women pinned against each other here.
Sorry, do I know you?
I used to chase after you back in Paris.
Paris? Sly Cooper? You aren't by any chance here to turn yourself in? Old Ironsides would fall out of her dress.
As good as that sounds, how about a dance first?
Enchanté.
We have a funny introduction, and then it's into a bit of Simon Says as we prance around the dance floor. Occasionally there's some breaks for dialogue as Neela realises we're dancing with her to get the attention of Carmelita, and of course some scenes with some of the Claw Gang members as we see Jean Besson and Rajan distracted by our moves.
It's very graceful. If only you moved spice shipments as well. Silence.
When the dance is over, Carmelita makes her move and we offer to dance with her at the big ball. The buds of romance starting to show in this game. With our date to the prom secured and the security down, it's back to a slideshow for the next phase of Bentley's plan. We need to get access to the winch above the ballroom using Bentley's hacking prowess, and we also need to steal some gems to create a sword durable enough to pry off the Clockwerk wings. Now, it sounds quite harebrained, but I remember hanging off Bentley's every word during these planning phases. My disbelief was fully suspended. I wasn't about to question the brains of the Cooper gang or how they were going to get these wings out of a big ballroom. Sly sneaks in behind the ballroom using an outlet pipe, and he has to find a code for the front door underneath the guards' break tables. Bentley starts to hack while Sly and Murray defend him, and this is all mostly from Murray's perspective, which is great because he can two-hit guards and Sly can't. You'll never feel as powerful as you do playing Murray in a combat mission. Sly then sneaks off to break into Rajan's prized elephant building. We're going to use the gems on their headgear to make a big saw blade. Of course, this doesn't go entirely to plan, as we need to parkour around, eventually ending up on top of the elephants to smack the gems free. Guards will chase us the whole time, and it's quite a chaotic scene. You do this 6 times and try not to get whacked by too many trunks as you do. Bentley does get his time to shine as he uses RC Chopper to take out some of Rajan's surface-to-air defences, just to make sure we've got an easy escape route. And it was quite nice because we just kinda had a Bentley mission, but with no Bentley in it. It was a nice change flying over his own and dropping bombs on things instead of having to sneak around for once as well. With everything in place, we get to find out the plan for the heist. It's Operation Hippodrop, and as said before, I'm hiding the plan from. We start off with Bentley doing a bit of a bombing run, having to take out the bridge between the guest house and the main place so that reinforcements can't come, and he starts his bombing run off with one of the hottest lines he could have dropped.
It doesn't take an engineer to figure out how to blow up a bridge.
He then has to make use of his demolitions expertise to take out various struts under the bridge, then going to warm up the van and getting ready to back up the gang with his chopper. Rajan sends his guards to go investigate.
What? The bridge is destroyed? Take all the manpower you need and look into it.
And when Sly confirms Murray's ready, as we see him lower down, holding the saw on the winch, he makes his move on Carmelita. The dance itself is quite simple, and I guess counts as the boss fight for this chapter. It's 10 times easier than when we had to do it with Miss Ruby and Sly 1, and I enjoy seeing Sly get to have fun. It's all the more better while we just see Murray dangling, slowly lowering into frame, which is hilarious. They even drop some cheeky lines of dialogue throughout between our hero and his romantic foil.
Familiar to me. Are you in law enforcement?
I often deal with police while on the job.
When the dance is over, Carmelita's ready to exchange numbers when it all kicks off. Murray then begins the absolute man mode effort of carrying the wings from the palace to the van. Bentley having to drop bombs on guards coming to attack him. It's a real combined effort, and it's satisfying seeing the friends rely on the strength of their friendship. And of course, a weaponized RC Chopper. When they get out, the outro cartoon explains the rest. Carmelita blows her cover and starts making arrests left, right and centre. Rajan flees into the nearby jungle. And weirdly enough, they sneak Murray onto a Bollywood movie set for a bit of rest and recuperation. We're hinted that the next chapter will involve Rajan again, so we'll look at that in a second. What I really like in these heists is how they're so structured, and we see each member of the Cooper gang taking their own role in them and growing as people. Bentley already is growing from a scaredy cat man in the intro to a proper field agent, dipping his toes to the point where he was ready to go out and blow a bridge. Murray was also the centrepiece of that heist, having to do the wing snatch and get away with them. Sly took a bit of a back seat, letting the gang do what they do best with their skill sets. And it was just cool to see how the gang operated in such a weird situation. Anyway, let's get to chapter 3. Rajan 2, Electric Boogaloo. Our next Clockwerk part is also in India. Bentley does some detective work to follow Rajan to a long-forgotten temple in the Indian jungle, the centre of his spice production. As you might have guessed by this point, we're dealing with a cartel. Rajan is producing the stuff, Dimitri pushing it through France, We'll learn about the other Claw members later. Rajan is using Clockwerk's heart as a pump to super irrigate his spice growing operation. Here's a little overview of the zone we're working with. Now, as a kid, I hated this area. There's one really tough mission and the platforming here is a bit ropey. There's a few specific paths to specific areas that aren't too obvious to climb. With that in mind, let's see the first mission. As with the other chapters, we're starting with recon. Sly has to sneak into the Spice Temple to get some photographs. Bentley kindly warning us that the nearest hospital is 106 miles from here. We sneak through a sewer grate hidden behind a waterfall, taking us to the bottom of the spice growing facility, and it's one big column with all the spicy stuff at the top. The guards are the same in this zone, it's just the overall level aesthetic that's changed to reflect our location. Sneaking up to the top, we can take a few photos. Firstly, we can see Rajan has split the Clockwerk heart, using half of it to irrigate the spice, and half on the end of a staff as some sort of status symbol. There's a hidden entrance to the room that Bentley can't line up with any plans either, and a locked winch which we'll need to get the other half of the heart down. Let's hop back to the safe house for a moment. Slideshow time. We found out the Clockwerk heart is under steep security and we need a bit more information. Sly needs to put a bug in Rajan's office while Bentley lifts some plans from him. At the same time, Rajan has a satellite array going that we need to take out or he's going to be able to listen into all of our comms. Firstly, the bug mission. A rare Mandela effect that most Sly players have nightmares remembering how hard this mission was. There's a rare water bug that we need to not only protect from damage but also drop off at various pools along the way, otherwise it gets agitated and alerts nearby guards to come and attack us. And yes, we're bugging with a bug. As a kid, this mission was the bane of my existence, but as an adult playing through it to record this, it was really easy. I have no clue what made it so hard either. I just don't get it. I remember this bug going off every 5 seconds and struggling to find the pools to quench it in, but during the video, it was a straight shot over to the office with little interruption. The bug even has a nice little pool in his office. For the plans, again, a really hard mission from my youth. Bentley has to use some adapted sleep darts that make a noise to lure Rajan towards Indian watermelons, and I like how they're twisting the mechanic here. Rajan's a bit of a fiend for these watermelons, and he'll gobble them whole, putting him to sleep on the spot, and then Bentley will come in and steal the plans. I remember it being hard to do this undetected, but in this case I didn't get caught once, just perch up and he's quite easy to lead around. The satellite array is driven by a giant elephant, and it's a little bit fiddly, needing us to collect unrefined spice plants. See, it turns out the main side effect of spice is that it causes uncontrollable rage. You know, like spice in real life. We need to climb to the highest points of the zone, which for the most part are all connected to each other by slippery vines. So, grab the spice, slap it in the elephant's feed bag, and hey presto, his satellites are down and our information is secure. Bentley's next slideshow tells us that due to his touch and fiddling with and the destruction of the satellite array, we've spooked Rajan. He's gone into hiding in the temple. We need to smoke him out in a couple of ways. Firstly, disabling spice production, and then busting a dam above the temple to flood the place and leave the Bengal tiger enraged and out in the open. Bentley's psychoanalysis determines that not only will this anger draw him out to fight us, but he'll bring the heart with him. Before any of those missions, Sly encounters Neela once again, this time in the jungle. He thanks her for not ratting him out, and she tells us Carmelita took the dance hijinks really badly. We invite Neela out because our boy has some riz.
Wood and eat curry all night long.
I'll keep it in mind, but first the task at hand.
And she says she'll accept. She's found a secret entrance to half the Clockwerk heart. Similar to the Dimitri mission, she's going to lead us around the jungle as we chase her, taking us directly to the entrance of the spice plant, and it's actually behind a secret door. She does, as I said before, agree to take us on our date in Bollywood. Inside the spice plant, we need to lower the Clockwerk heart, but it's currently protected by a locked control box and we can't get to that winch, so we need to do a bit of handy pickpocketing. We get it down without much fuss, and we can leave with half the Clockwerk heart and production at a bit of a standstill. Now, we still need to take out a spice grinder to deal with what's already been harvested and, to annoy him a bit more. The TNT mission, as it's called, for the spice grinder is famous amongst fans for being annoying and one of the worst levels in the game. Sly needs to jump into barrels of TNT and drop them off at points of security to blow them up and get past. I never minded this mission too much, it's just a bit slower than the rest of them. I ended up having to fix my emulator here so I could see the guard spotlights, and I didn't realise I had that bug going on. And well, when you can see the spotlights, it's easy. Here's Sly blowing up the grinder. Rajan is furious as we expect.
Fallen behind. Wait, it's completely stopped.
The blowing up the dam goes in 2 parts. Firstly, we set up a later mission by knocking a ruby loose and using Murray to carry it across various little trampolines to get it from where it's been knocked loose to our buyer. First to a gangster to appraise it.
This ruby is near flawless.
And then to another member of the gang to complete the deal. They promised to supply us a Cherry Bomb 500 later in the heist. There's some fan theories that this crime ring has some ties to Miss Ruby, but nothing substantial, just a lot of Ruby talk. After the little payoff, we then use Bentley and Rajan's recently bought autopiloting attack helicopter to deal some damage. Rajan actually has a fleet of gunships offering them a barrel of spice to whoever can take us out. You've got to balance shooting the dam and shooting the choppers, and it goes to show we're not robbing off some schmuck in the woods. This guy has resources, supply lines, an army even. We're facing off against someone rich and powerful, and it's just how Sly likes it. Remember, master thieves want to steal from master criminals. With the dam busted, we can go to the operation plan. It's Operation Wet Tiger. Now, I'm going to keep it vague again. We're going to use the Cherry Bomb 500 and try to get Rajan out in the open. Firstly, Murray opens an elephant head statue, with Bentley providing some turret support. And you've got all these hunter-seeker missiles coming down. You've got to shoot them all. If one gets through, Murray's a bit busted. Then Sly walks another barrel of doom to the spot where it's needed. This all goes pretty much to plan. Where things get slippy is after all this is done and Rajan comes out. He's fuming.
Spice Temple ruined. I will no longer hide while you villains destroy my hard-won empire. This place is mine. Here I am king.
He somehow converted Clockwerk's heart's staff into something a bit supernatural. We've got Neela for backup, and she also wants to arrest Rajan. We want the heart, so we can probably walk down the middle line here. We chase her across little broken wooden beams to get over to the tiger while he's throwing lightning at us. But when we shout at her to attack, she double crosses us, as Sly is shocked into a little reservoir, probably emotionally as well as physically. Murray jumps down to save him, and him and Rajan face off with one of the hardest opening lines to come out of this game.
The Murray will renew your fear.
Who's the Murray? All I see is a fat, pathetic weakling.
I might be big and not as smart as the other guys, but one thing I'm not is weak.
Rajan could be a tricky fight, but what seems to work best is if you throw one of his goons at him, he'll fall and you can pick him up to then throw him into the lasers that surround the arena. You can just box him normally, but just make sure to stay out of the water when he starts throwing lightning around, like some sort of Dark Souls boss. With him dispatched by the Murray, we manage to get the other half of the heart, just in time for Neela to show up again. Murray doesn't know she's a turncoat and he asks her to throw a ladder down. She's flanked by the Contessa and Carmelita, and just as they're all wagging tongues, Neela accuses Carmelita of being in league with the Coopers, hence why she never caught the gang. She then shows Contessa a photo of them dancing at Rajan's ball, double-crossing her too, and it's a bittersweet ending to the chapter. We managed to get 2 pieces of Clockwerk, well, 1 technically, and we got them in record time, and Bentley sums it up best with this sound.
Though statistically improbable, I had to face the facts. Neela had betrayed us, my teammates were captured, and I was all alone. While intellectually inferior, Sly and Murray had always been a rich source of sociological interest. The long walk out of the jungle gave me time to reflect, and with each passing step, my sense of isolation grew. Shockingly, my comrade's absence had a profound emotional effect on me.
With each passing step, Bentley feels more isolated, having to navigate out of the jungle on his own. This is it, the true test of friendship. Bentley endeavours to save them from Interpol. But first,
I had to learn how to drive a stick shift.
Bentley does some data crunching to find out where his friends are. They're in the spooky towers of Prague, kept by Interpol's Contessa. While still a criminal psychology student, she married a wealthy aristocrat. Falling to her Black Widow nature, the general died several weeks after the ceremony under suspicious circumstances, and she put the man's money towards a criminal rehabilitation centre. Her pioneering use of hypnotherapy earned her a spot in Interpol. If Bentley doesn't burst them out soon,
they'll be working a 9-to-5 job selling shoes, and I'll be out two best friends. Wait a second.
Bentley's on his own, at least for the start of this chapter, in Jailbreak. This is the first time he's been alone too, probably for a long time, being as the gang started out in an orphanage together. Despite being isolated and unsure of his own capabilities, Bentley is forced to be the field man. Now, he's been out on the field a couple of times. At this point, it's either far from harm or rarely on his own. Probably the first example of him having to force some confidence is when he's tailing Rajan and he has to get real up close and personal with him. But this time, he's almost forced into this miraculous growth again, down this gradient he's already been working towards to find himself. First, Bentley has to do the recon on his own. He sneaks to the top of the Contessa's house, and being able to use his darts, he can hit some sort of special frequency to listen into her talking to herself. We just have to dart her a couple of times. She reveals a few things. Firstly, she's a member of the Claw Gang, profiting off their spice shipments somehow. She doesn't appreciate the Cooper Gang's morality and plans to hypnotise them to her way of thinking soon enough. A second dart reveals Contessa's criminal scheme. She takes criminals and hypnotises them into revealing where they buried their fortunes, using the spice to aid her hypnosis. A third dart has her talking about the Cooper Gang directly. She bets Murray will be the first to break, and she hopes to find out where they've buried their wealth. Dart number 4 has her talking about our hero. Sly has a rebellious and tough mind. She plans on leaving him in the hole for a couple of months, surrounded by guards with motion detectors. Eventually, the isolation will cause him to break when he realises there's no way out. Bentley has some words about the Contessa's conduct.
Inconceivable! She's no healthcare professional! Why, that's the most heinous crime I've ever heard of!
We get to see the streak of Bentley caring about a thief's honour and his intent to break out Sly first. Prague is a suitably spooky place as we traverse, keeping that twisted Burton aesthetic, but warping it into something you'd probably see, again, in A Nightmare Before Christmas. Bats, spiders, wolfmen, pretty much everything you'd think you'd see in a horror chapter. Bentley decides on a bit of a harebrained scheme. Firstly, we need to get Sly out of the hole, so we're going to hack all of the terminals hooked up to a nearby mag train, using them to speed it up to the point where we can use it as a missile to blow open one of the prison walls. The hacking is similar to the first game, having Bentley use a little avatar to shoot at various red enemy avatars, even shooting at barriers and interacting with different types of switches, firing out his little hacker code from his turret. We do this for several terminals, each upping the difficulty by adding in more turrets, even more pursuers, and we get this nice graphic of the train on loop in the background. When we're done, the train takes off, thankfully piercing the wall of the hole. Now, we still have the guard... Sorry, I can't take that line seriously. Now, we still have the guards to take care of, and with Bentley's limited movement and combat options, as we progress through the overworld, this chapter feels tense. You really get that feeling of isolation that Bentley is currently subjected to. He's vulnerable. Bentley gets eyes on the guards of the wall of the prison. They've got motion trackers and seem to be the barrier to Sly escaping through that hole we've made him. We pull out the RC chopper, making real short work of them. You're meant to juke the rockets that get shot at you, but you've got such a forgiving amount of health, it's not a hard section. With the guards out, we finally get control of Sly for the first time in this mission, and it's long overdue. He's very happy to hear from Bentley. Sly thanks him for bursting him out, and we get a nice callback to the intro of the game, with Sly taking Bentley more seriously than before and using their code name.
You know the old saying, if you can't count on a friend to bust you out of jail, what kind of a friend are they?
Truer words were never said, wizard.
It's a nice touching moment in their friendship. With Sly back at the safe house, we get a lovely slideshow highlighting the situation with Murray. He's in cell block D, and getting him out will be a bit tougher than Sly, as he's not exactly agile, and he's with the rest of the prison population. First, we need to get Mary in an isolation cell away from the rest of the prison. Then, we need to grab some keys and hunt down some security codes. Finally, and strangest of all, Bentley asks Sly to handle the Contessa's giant attack robot. Now, it looks like a water tower, but Bentley's convinced, so let's humour him. Let's start with a bit of jailhouse rock. Sly crawls through a sewer pipe under the jail to get over to Mary's cell block. They're able to have a conversation through the vents. They've been forcing Mary to eat meals covered in spice, probably for the purpose of hypnosis. So there's a bit of a clock on getting Mary out before the Contessa's done mind-diddling him. To get Mary into isolation, we need to take out 50 foes, which isn't actually hard as Mary, especially in such a dangerous prison where there's spikes, lasers, and other traps we can use to our advantage. When we're done being antisocial, we see how the guards plan to throw Mary into solitary. Bentley and Sly have a bit of busy work together that for the sake of the plot I want to gloss over. There's a few bits of interest though. Firstly, we need Sly to defend Bentley while he blows up some pipes under a bridge to depower some of the security systems in the prison. This is obviously a mission better suited for Murray, so we're seeing some key knock-on effects of him being away from the group. It's harder than it needs to be. Sly has to rely on stealth for some quick takedowns by hiding in the place of some wolf statues. How the guards fall for it I'll never know. But when groups of them come, we have to fight them conventionally, and we just wish Murray was there. After that, we have to steal 2 tank keys and a tank patrol schedule from the Contessa, and we'll be using that to sneak into the prison later. We need to lure her personal guard away by using noise, breaking objects nearby to take them away from the group before she'll jump away, and we rinse and repeat. Then, for our triple feature as Sly, we need to steal more keys to activate some security alarms. When the guard comes running to reset it, we'll take a picture of the code he uses, and with enough of these, Bentley can crack the Contessa's security algorithm. The challenge here is setting off the alarm and climbing to a vantage point in time, but it's fairly simple. Then we're on to the big attack robot mission. The dialogue between characters is always a highlight in these games. We can see Sly is skeptical of Bentley, but trusts his friend enough to go through with the mission anyway. We need to do a bit of lightning chasing to break some lightning rods, and well, I'll let Sly sum it up.
Okay, so you want me to break the ground circuit on all these lightning rods so that a bolt will strike and destroy the giant attack robot posing as a water tower.
That's an accurate summation.
It's a bit of climbing and button pressing with a surprising result at the end. Turns out Bentley's rarely wrong. With all these missions in the bag, we get the slideshow for the heist in this chapter, Operation Trojan Tank. Bentley's going to be driving that tank we stole earlier and raising the bed up so that we can crawl underneath and sneak into the compound. He then uses his turret to blast open the front doors so we can run straight in. Due to all the security measures being unpowered, there's not a big response to us breaking in, and we then have to climb up through the cell block itself to get to the guard control center, dealing with traps, acrobatics, and of course the Wolfman prisoners inside. They're more interested in dispatching us than breaking free themselves, and so they're probably fully mind-cranked. When we get into solitary, things look a bit ropey. It's probably an effect of the spice he was being force-fed. Bentley tells us we need to get him out of the cell the hard way, using several hypno boxes around solitary to heighten the effects of the spice, causing Murray to go hostile and break down his own door. It's quite weird, it's the first time we've seen a member of the gang in serious trouble. It's a tag team effort between Sly climbing up to the controls for each box and Bentley hacking into them at range. Bentley really is the MVP in this chapter, doing the most for the team here. As we activate each hypno box, we can see Murray's aggression go up and up, with some quite comical, if not a bit troubling scenes.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Tip me over and I'll smash up everything! Ah!
When the final one is on, he's fully bloodlusted, and we need to make use of this newfound extra aggression to get him to smash the boxes, by baiting him into a charge and dodging out of the way. You can also just sit behind the boxes, and he's gone full loco, so the AI is just in control here. When we free him from the effects of the hypnosis, Murray actually thinks he's in heaven, reunited with his friends, and it shows you how much stress he's been under. We find out Murray's been keeping half the heart hidden on him in the prison. As a guy that doesn't have trousers, he's probably doing a bit of prison pocket action, which again is a bit of an adult nod for such a low-rated game. They really push the bounds of what they can tell in this story under this rating, but nothing's obfuscated. Anyone can follow it, and it's quite mature at times. We charge out, chasing after the Contessa, who's attempting to flee. She tries to get into Murray's head, but again, the king of wrestling intros hits a fat one-liner on her.
Done talking with my mouth. Now I talk with my fists.
We have to chase her around the perimeter of the prison, not after any clockwork parts this time, but just pure retribution for what she's put the gang through, and especially the dark place she's forced Murray into. It's thanks to friendship he's out in one piece. She manages to get away on an escape blimp, and the gang is determined to hunt her down in the next chapter. The ending cutscene is a lot more jolly, with Bentley saying how the gang's been reunited. The van ride out was like a party, with Murray having to pull over twice due to all the laughter, and the gang had never been apart since childhood, and all this sudden isolation gave them time to think. They decide to take a few weeks off to celebrate their friendship, and Murray even lets Bentley drive the van as they get back on the road for the Clockwerk parts. Sly opens up chapter 5 saying the gang want a bit of payback, and rightly so. The Contessa has fled to her gothic estate deeper in Prague, and the gang in the last chapter found out the Contessa was a secret member of the Claw gang, and as such have learned she has a part of Clockwerk. It's the eyes. The Clockwerk eyes are capable of stopping people dead in their tracks, transfixing them like a hypnotist's pocket watch, the perfect artifact for someone like the Contessa, an accomplished hypnotist. She's been ousted from Interpol at this point and is currently being besieged by Neela and a force of mercenaries, so we need to get her before the police do. We've almost got two antagonists in this mission because of it, Contessa and Neela as a secondary. As such, when it gets to recon photos, we take pictures of both sides of the picket fence, first at Neela's HQ, and then across at the Contessa's fortress. Neela has made her HQ out of an old bank in the town. It's a fairly secure setup, so we won't just be able to sneak about there, we'll have to drive her out. It's also flanked by a load of mercenary tank operators, which are new to this mission. The Contessa's estate is a really big, spooky castle, just to sum it up, with boats and blimps both circling it. To make things worse, the Contessa has an army of her own there, tanks included. Bentley tells us to climb up to her re-education tower, the tallest spire of the gargoyle-encrusted castle, as he assumes that's where the Clockwerk eyes will be kept. It's quite a long old climb, and you do get this huge view of the zone from up there. It's quite nice. But the door to the tower is locked from the inside, so we have to climb up even further to a fortunately open window. Inside, we get a shocking sight. The Contessa has our one true love, Carmelita, tied up here. She's trying to hypnotise her to take the fall so that she can get out scot-free. She knows too much about the Claw gang, and it was only a matter of time until she discovered the Contessa's involvement. Her plan is to integrate the Clockwerk eyes into some sort of hypnotising device, and from that point, Carmelita won't stand a chance. We take a few photos in the tower, and Sly really wants to try and help her, but Bentley, the voice of reason, says there's nothing we can do right now, but we'll work it into the heist. The eyes are exactly where we'd expect them, half merged into a machine, and the room is swarming with an elite shadow guard of the Contessa's. Bentley knows some hacking and diversion will be needed to actually break Carmelita out. The Contessa is using a device called the Mind Shuffler. It's equal parts science and black magic, bringing back the supernatural element that we've seen in Sly 1 with Miss Ruby. There's a vulnerability in the infrastructure that keeps Carmelita in place, so there's some work we can do. Let's get to Bentley's first slideshow.
The war between Neela and the Contessa has put the castle on high alert.
We need to manipulate the conflict between Neela and the Contessa. Murray will be kidnapping her head of security for interrogation, while Bentley goes under the crypts of the castle to put together a bad mojo bomb, something that will be capable of destroying the Mind Shuffler. Sly will be doing a bit of ghost hunting to drop some supernatural ghoulies onto Neela's HQ, in the hopes that she takes that as an escalation from the Contessa. When it gets to the missions, we'll start with Murray. Murray spots the old bat, General Clawfoot, the head of castle security, and this guy is basically indestructible, besides exposure to fire and water. This means we need to carry him back to the safe house, but we're perfectly able to use him as a projectile and throw him about a bit. Again, I remember this being quite hard from memory, but in the recording, I was easily able just to run straight to the safe house. I didn't even have to turn many corners, even with the guards on my tail. When we get in there, the question is, how do you interrogate an indestructible war veteran? And the answer, a tickly feather. Bentley's got it covered.
Yeah? How about a little of this? Talk, you scoundrel!
For the bad mojo bomb, Bentley sneaks into several crypts beneath the estate. The Contessa has a bad mojo collector she uses to collect the runoff from the crypts. Bentley steals it and needs to avoid taking any damage whilst holding it or he'll go boom. The crypts work out as a bit of a waiting game with guards pouring in and various trap switches around the room we need to use to destroy them. The first one's just a big smasher, but they do get more exciting. Bentley obviously is the worst combatant in the Cooper gang, so we need to rely on these switches. We won't really stand a chance of getting through. Now, there's 4 crypts, each with varying traps from fire spouts to sliding blades, and it's just about getting the timing right on using each trap without leaving them all on cooldown and yourself exposed. It was a fun mission. Sly's ghost hunting mission happens at the same time, and it involves some more crypt diving as we smash the coffin of an evil wolf priestess and let free a load of spirits trapped in there with her. It's then a bit of sightseeing around the level as we need to catch them with our binocucom, fatal frame style. When you've got all of them, we drop the payload into Neela's HQ and she comes running out believing it was the Contessa and telling us she's buying reinforcements. With those missions done, it's slideshow 2 time, and the escalation of the war has gone well, but there's a few last steps we need before a heist. First, we need to steal an experimental voice modulator and plant it under Neela's base to be able to control her newly bought forces without her knowing. The bombers Neela has bought have unbalanced the conflict slightly, so we need Murray to drive around and destroy her doom stacks. Bentley needs to go into the crypts again to power up an old terminal in the re-education tower to take advantage of some infrastructure vulnerabilities. We're told Sly will need a glider for the final heist, so we pick that up on Thief.net too. Weirdly, I haven't actually touched on ThiefNet yet, but basically we can exchange coins you get from the levels, from either smashing destructibles or pickpocketing guards, for various abilities each member of the gang can use. It's very nice. Let's do the missions in reverse order this time. Bentley found out from General Clawfoot that there's a remote power source in the crypts, and our newly confident turtle will be using this to activate the terminal in the re-education centre. This turns into a bit of basic platforming, but we can't get hit while carrying the battery. It's like any of the other carried items in the game. We then need to hack a load of terminals to reroute power to the main one. You've seen the hacking already, so let's gloss over that. We do get an interesting bit of dialogue between Carmelita and the Contessa though as we finish the job.
Little fox, why fight it? Don't you want to be my friend?
No, you horrible 8-legged cow! No!
With that old computer powered up, my work here is done.
Next, for Murray, it's a famously difficult mission where we need to use both thumbsticks to control each tank tread, then take out a load of tanks without being destroyed ourselves. We can't heal during this to my knowledge, so it's a mission of picking our shots. Then, Sly does a bit of a rehash of earlier missions, pickpocketing some keys and carrying the devices needed back to Neela's HQ. The main challenge is distracting a load of flashlight guards in the crypts to sneak past them without being spotted. A weirdly autistic obsession bit of knowledge is that as we pick up the items needed here, the names are in full caps because they were coded differently to the other items, not because they had anything special about them. There's a very funny scene of Bentley testing the modulator, and it's a bit beansy.
Hello, mercenary tank forces.
You want spinning your turrets for me? Cats, this is cool. I mean, you are all really cool. Carry on.
Onto the heist. Operation High Road. Murray just has to click a button to start us off, disabling the spotlights to the main gates of Contessa's fortress, letting the goons come piling in. Bentley's going to use the voice modulator to call in the cavalry, while Murray sneaks to a tank to help out. Bentley then jumps on Sly's back in this weirdly shrinking size to do a little glide over to the Contessa's escape blimp. Funnily enough, Bentley's size changes each game, but this scene itself looks a bit strange to say the least. He's smaller than those paintings from before. In the tower, we do a bit of hardcore hacking, and we see the Contessa sending her forces away from the tower due to the conflict, just as we'd planned. When Carmelita is free, she chases the Contessa out for a bit of revenge, while the gang get the bomb going. Unfortunately, despite blowing up the mine shuffler, Neela comes in and steals one of the Clockwerk eyes. She says one should be enough for the old bird, so perhaps she's working with Arpeggio on the sly, the bird we saw back at Rajan's party, and the exotic tech member of the Clotter gang. We chase Neela around the castle as Sly to try and get the eye back, all while there's bombing runs, exploding barrels, and tanks roaming around. She ends up getting stuck in a web, and Sly is left face to face with the Contessa, but we cut away to Bentley on a blimp before the chase scene. He's got a bit of a turret section against the planes flying around the castle, Neela's reinforcements, and I was a big fan of this split chronology during the heist. It lets them include some cliffhangers that keep the suspense winding through, like what's going on with the Contessa, and it lets us see different perspectives of one massive conflict. It's really cool and cinematic. Now, unfortunately, another snag we have is that Carmelita thinks the Contessa's on the blimp Bentley's shooting from, and so she shoots it down with her shock pistol. As his fate's left ambiguous, we cut back to Sly and the Contessa. He tries to reason with the Contessa, and it gets a bit unhinged.
Short-sighted fool! I've no interest in your narrow interpretation of morality. I'm above all that. Above good and evil.
And you think I'd give the eye to someone that's above morality?
The fight against her is rather simple, just dodge her attacks and keep swinging at her. She throws little spider spawn at us, which I hope isn't some sort of offspring of hers. All during the fight, we hear Bentley and Carmelita on the comms, as she's stolen the other Clockwerk eye from him. When we beat the Contessa, Sly gives her a bit of a "I'm sorry" speech, and she attacks us while our guard's down. She then runs off with one of the eyes, to Sly's chagrin. The heist is so far a bit of a wash, with both eyes in our enemy's hands and one of our members captured. Carmelita's just gotten into a tank with one of the eyes, but fortunately we've got Mary behind her in one too, so we just need to take her out to get it back. We end up chasing her around the grounds, but we do manage to disable her tank and get one eye back, while Sly faces off against the Contessa again. Only this time, she plans to use the eye during combat to try and mess with our mind, showing just how lethal even parts of Clockwerk can be in someone's hands. It felt a little bit like Shaolin Showdown when they start backing out all these weird artifacts. Her moveset is mostly the same, but with this one new move that can use the eye to mess with us, we're quite vulnerable when we're hit by this attack. Taking her out for a second time, she praises Sly as we make off with the second eye and regroup with the gang, shutting the book on Prague and probably one of my favourite levels. While the heist didn't go exactly to the plan, it worked out. The Contessa's arrested, but Neela's somehow promoted as the hero of Prague. Because Carmelita's still on the run, we help her escape, much to Sly's enjoyment. The stress of the Clockwerk situation does weigh on him though slightly, as the gang decide to lay low a bit after several close calls with the law now. Chapter 6 has us following the trail of spy shipments to track down members of the Claw Gang. Heading to Canada, the group find the shipping baron, Jean Besson, a young man who trekked across Canada during the gold rush of 1852. He was then buried in an avalanche, but kept alive due to the quick freeze. Global warming thawed him out, and his goals never changed from his time period, wanting to tame the wild north. That means chopping all the trees, damming all the rivers, and Sly says he feels sorry for him. Back in the 1850s, he'd be a hero, but here and now, he's a massive villain. We've no clue what he's doing with his parts, especially since he's so low tech, but we're determined to find out. The Canada sections, for whatever reason, were my favourite growing up. I think it's because we've not seen such a grounded scene yet in the Sly games. This isn't some wacky operation, it's just an old Canadian dude running trains and chopping trees with the boys in the wilderness. It's a nice slowdown in pace after being in an active conflict between a countess and Interpol. We need to enter Jean Besson's cabins to start and ransack his files. This is our recon mission. We get a new ability in using rock climbing hooks to slingshot ourselves up walls. There's 3 cabins in total, and the first having the old man in itself. We need to stay out of sight or he'll catch us, and we're meant to photograph the train routes in this room, but it's so interesting to just hide and listen to him on the phone talking to Arpeggio, the other Claw Gang member. We learned so much.
That dreadful speakerphone.
Yeah, I can think better while my legs move. Pumps blood to your brain.
Turns out Arpeggio's on a blimp and will be coming to Canada soon to pick up a specialised Northern Lights battery. He also has the Clockwerk brain. No clue what he's doing with it. We find out Jean has put 3 Clockwerk parts into his 3 best trains, his iron horses as he calls them. With the parts in place, the trains will run all day and all night. The call also confirms that Clockwerk was fully machined. There was no organic parts left in him, even his brain was mechanical. We get out of cabin 1 with the train routes and enter a couple of other cabins for the train blueprints. The guards here being Canadian geese, moose and mountain goats, all with their Canadian logger uniforms on, and they just look so cool. With all the plans, we could run out and get a start of a plan from Bentley. Slideshow 1 shows us, with knowing Jean Besson, that he has 2 lungs and a stomach from Clockwerk, keeping his trains running 24/7. We can't sneak in while they've stopped because they don't stop. We need to blow open some hatches on the cabooses of the trains using some spice gas from the balloons above town. Then Bentley will jump into Iron Horse 1, and hopefully we'll have record time for our first Clockwerk part. Of course, things never go to plan. One of the first missions we can access after follows the events of Murray going out to find some lunch and getting caught by Carmelita, who's followed us to the Canadian north. Bentley's freaking out over this. He's used to knowing all the facts, and it probably triggers him having his friend arrested again. Sly knows Carmelita isn't cruel and decides to follow her, knowing she'll check in on Murray again. She's got him locked up and has actually been feeding him. I mean, if jelly beans count as feeding him. She's trying to bust the rest of the gang to get back in with Interpol and prove her innocence. We have to pick up some keys from her pockets, but she's a bit more wily than our normal marks, and after every pick, we'll have to run, hide, then rinse and repeat. We do eventually get Murray out, and Murray doesn't get Sly's innuendo when we start talking to him.
Pal, I was getting a Charlie horse standing in that box.
My pleasure. You know how I love to mess around with Carmelita.
Yeah, that's weird. See you back at the safe house.
Carmelita will remain as a permanent stage hazard, patrolling around like one of the guards as well, which was a nice change. The Spice Gas missions I remembered being really easy, but I actually had a bit of trouble this time around. We have to take an ice plane up to the skies where Sly can then glide to different balloons, collecting gas using a vacuum backpack, and then eventually landing directly on the cabooses, throwing the backpack down and blowing them free. It's quite a change up to be in the skies for a mission, but it can be a bit tricky sticking the landings. You do get a nice view of the stage and all the three trains zooming around though. With the cabooses blown, we're actually ready for Heist 1, and Bentley just has to jump on one of the cabooses while it passes underneath him to enter Iron Horse number 1. The train itself seems to be a lot bigger once you're actually inside, and it's a series of carriages trapped up to the Wazo with a Canadian wilderness flowing alongside you. There's a few guards, but as a ranged character, you won't struggle even if you're not entirely stealthy. The placement of exploding barrels also helps our little turtle here. It's actually quite a straight run, and while still cool as a set piece, it's not amazingly intricate. The heist's quite easy as Bentley makes off with one of the lungs, no hitches involved. What's the plan for the others though? Iron Horse 2 needs Bentley to hop on and do a bit of preemptive RC chopper striking to clear out some airborne defences so Sly can hop on after. And for Iron Horse 3, Murray's going to have to enlist the help of the local wildlife in helping us catch up with the train. For Train 2, it's a similar affair with Bentley having to hop aboard the caboose of a second train, and then we're in a bit of an on-rails flying section, with the chopper having to bomb missile launchers and avoid damage in the skies. It seems Jean has his own fleet of RC choppers too, no doubt given to him by Arpeggio, and we need to take them out as well. It's not a very hard affair. Sly then hops on board, and we've got a similar section to Bentley's old one, only this time involving a little more Master Thief agility to get around some of the obstacles. Bisson is warning his men to stop anyone from stealing the lung, telling them he'd hate to put them out on disability. That's 2 lungs down, and let's see how Murray's getting on with the local wildlife. There's a handcart that's all locked up, and it's strong enough to resist Bentley's bombs and Murray's muscle. We need a stronger force.
The love of a mother for her child.
By taking 2 bear cubs, we can get the mother to smash the fence to free them. It's another slightly weird scene where these aren't anthropomorphic bears, so it's unclear if he's child napping here or what. The cubs are spread about the overworld, but there's only 2 of them, so it's not a hard task at all, even with one still in the bear's cave. Mama Bear frees the cubs, and out comes the handcart ready for the heist. The heist is actually called Operation Choo Choo, and we're going to be using the handcar and Murray's muscle to get behind the train, Sly travelling through the interior, with Bentley providing air support. He says the deadly words of what can possibly go wrong. Strap in folks for an old-fashioned train robbery. Murray manages to pump the handcar as fast as a Clockwerk optimised train while the rest of the gang do their thing. Sly starts by sneaking through the various guard and trap inhabited carriages, one of them having this extra fancy little maze covered in lasers that leads on to John himself guarding one of the carriages. Say what you want, but he's no pushover and he isn't just relying on his flunkies, threatening to cut down any robbers himself. We get stuck between a rock and a hard place as Neela arrives in some sort of aircraft and we get our flirt on.
Come in, little friends. Neela's got me pinned down. Any chance of air support?
I've already launched the RC chopper. She won't know what hit her.
Come on, Cooper. Let's play.
Bentley sends his RC chopper against some modern flying aircraft, and something I noticed quite early on is if you press square to shoot and hold it, you'll shoot quite slowly. but you can absolutely mulch through this fight by spamming the button. There's no cooldown on it. We get the best thank you in history too.
Fancy flying, little friend.
Whatever you say, poodle.
I love the friendship of this gang, and it's probably what stuck with me more than anything else story-wise. There's a few risky climbs after that section, but when Sly gets to the stomach, it's reinforced, and we'll need Bentley's chopper to drop some bombs down there. We do, of course, have to fight Neela a second time before getting there, but she's a real pushover here. That's the stomach down, and Canada done for now. Short and sweet, but with some cool train runs in it. The gang celebrate their big train heists, and have managed to walk away with not one, not two, but 3 Clockwerk parts, stopping spice distribution in North America to boot. Carmelita's still on the run, and eventually we'll have to clear her name, but we've got time for that later on, as there's 2 chapters left, and the next one's also a banger. We find out things just aren't right in Canada. Random acts of violence are popping up everywhere, the northern lights are disappearing on days they're meant to be brightly showing. By following these disappearing lights, we find a lumber camp, and Basson has been busy here making use of the Clockwerk talons as an axe blade, chopping down whole forests in a matter of hours. So far, we know that Arpeggio's Blimp is on its way to get a battery from John Basson, and that will be the only way to get onto the Blimp. We need to pinch the talons and sneak on the Blimp when it arrives, and this gives us quite a tight deadline. We start with some recon photos using Sly's new ability to climb up sheet ice, flanking a lot of the walls here. In a twist on these photo missions, we actually have to travel all around the overworld to get pictures of a lot of the structures here, instead of being focused to one building or a couple of buildings. First, a boat with a Wi-Fi link that Bentley will be able to later use. Then a blind bear that's putting out a radio signature of some description. Some saw blades that proves this camp has been around for a long time, probably back when Basson got frozen in the first place. And finally, the man's cabin, fit with a giant bison motif on the front. The lair of the beast, as Bentley calls it. Then we're heading to a lighthouse just off the coast, and we need to make use of some acrobatic platforming to get over there, as there's no bridge to help us. Sly can sneak into it using a vent on the bottom, and inside we see something, anything but low tech. The lighthouse itself is one giant battery charger, siphoning the northern lights directly. The place is barred from the inside, so Sly will later need to open that up by climbing through the top. Bison is here, with his giant Clockwerk axe, looking like a bit of 2000s raid gear. He's going to offer the Clockwerk talons as a prize for the up-and-coming Lumberjack games to bring in more participants so that he's not just competing against himself. But, of course...
Oh no, who am I kidding, eh? I'm gonna win just like every other year. Oh, it's tough being this tough. It sure is, yeah.
When we get back to the safe house, Bentley wants to talk about the Lumberjack games. The plan is actually to participate and to win the prize honestly for once. There's several different events that we'll need to pick up some help with. Bentley also wants us to learn from the guards where the battery is so we can pull a Trojan horse maneuver to get aboard the Blimp. For some recon, Bentley wants us to steal some radio transmitters from the local bears who've been tagged with trackers. We need Sly to crawl into their cave and pickpocket the tags from their mouths without waking them up. If we step on any crackly ice around, we'll accidentally wake them up. It's a bit squeaky bum time, but when we get the transmitters, we then need to make a bit of an array by putting them on all the highest points around the logging camp. These things come with teeth too, which I find ridiculously funny. With the array up, we then move on to Murray trying to blend in with the guards. There's an RC combat club that we need to get into, and a disguise he'll need to pull off. Firstly, the disguise is an old stuffed moose head, which is a little bit morbid given the guards themselves are moose. Sly needs to work his way up to the moose head with some sexy platforming, crossing saw blades and various bits of heavy machinery to get there. This place is an active logging camp, not a spice shipping operation, and we're actually just robbing quite a mundane setting again for once. Spinny saw blades included. With a disguise that basically equates to Murray doing a Leatherface routine, we then get to using an RC combat drone. It's a tank, but with nice controls for once. We need to collect a load of ammo chips and fire back at the opponent's drone. Now, for some reason, the missiles seem to have quite a lot of splash on them, and I accidentally got him to blow up his own drone by shooting me. The guard, with little money to pay us for losing his bet, tells us where the battery is. And the thing is huge. It's a silo. The first mission relating to the Lumberjack games involves us forwarding out an ancient guide to log chopping, We need to free a laser from this advanced log cutting building, and to do so, we've got quite a bit of sneaking around more machinery. Saw blades, lasers included. When the laser's out in the open, we then have to put a load of mirrors down to angle it at the log cutting guide, all across the overworld, freeing it along with some native wildlife. From then, Bentley realises playing fair won't work, and we're going to have to cheat during the lumberjack games. It was worth trying it honest while we could, but some things don't play out that way. One of the main things we'll need is an eagle egg, but we're not sure why. Murray's going to destroy some oil mains, giving Sly something to glide above to get to the eagle's nest. Alongside this, we've got the Trojan horse plan, where we're going to have to drain the battery silo using some boats, and then go into the lighthouse to stop it charging. Disabling the charger goes just as imagined, with us climbing on top of the lighthouse and then having to avoid some electromagnetic radiation on our way down. We open it up, letting the gang in, and then we climb back up to destroy the charger. For the oil mains, we make use of that blind bear we saw earlier. By throwing fish at them, we can get the bear to smash them open, a bit like we did in that last chapter with the kids, cubs. Then Sly has to glide over across all the oil mains we smashed in one of the most frustrating sections, where if you fail once, you're restarting from the beginning, and it's like a 6-minute gliding sequence. We actually want the egg for the game so that we can sick the eagles on Bison at any moment. Then we're on to the lumberjack games themselves in Operation Canada games. There's 3 different events with Sly involved in climbing, Murray in the power log chopping, and Bentley in the log rolling event. And there's some cheating involved, but let's see that in action. First, the gang keep a low profile as they speak to Bison himself and enter the games.
Lumberjack games.
Think you got what it takes to win the Clockwerk Talons, eh? Well, I'm sure enough gonna let you play, so long as you pay the entry fee.
I didn't realise that he hadn't actually seen the gang up until this point, and this guy's massive. He's like 2 Murrays glued together. For the power log chop, we have Murray doing one of those sliding bar mini games to chop the log, and he gets us a decent score of 10s all round before Bison gets his go. We go to plant the eagle egg behind him to throw off his axe timing, and Bentley is going to use his diminutive size and ability to hold round objects to his advantage. The eagle sweeps in, and Bison gets 0s all round, though he's not happy.
What? I think you better rethink them scores, boys. What you intended to give me was perfect 10s, right?
Cheating to the side, then Sly climbs up a sheer cliff face with various hooks and electrical plates in our way, getting straight 10s again. To cheat this time, when Bison's on the wall, we have to use 3 different grappling hooks to tear him off. Despite him being a big guy, he can be quite hard to hit, but he does come plummeting down to get 0s again, with some more threats to his judges. Then comes the log rolling, and it's a straight platforming section where Bentley has to stay out of the water as logs start to dip under randomly. When Bison is on there, there's no clear way to cheat, and those crooked judges are going to get in our way. So Sly suggests a bit of an off-the-cuff plan to lure the judges using an alarm clock gadget to a nearby cave. The gang will take their place in disguise and give him a low score. Unfortunately, a hippo, a turtle, and a raccoon don't make convincing ducks, despite wearing their severed bills in quite an unwittingly dark moment. Bison offers to give us the talons if we want them that bad, throwing his axe at us.
You aren't the judges I hired. It's the scrawny raccoon and his annoying friends. Well, if you want the talons, then why don't you just take them?
Bentley, Sly and Murray wake up, seemingly trapped in the sawmill control room. There's only a small little pipe out of the room, and Bentley is the only one who can fit. Sly will man the controls for the sawmill in case he needs backup, and Murray will try and force the door to the room they're stuck in. Bentley hops down into a big industrial arena, and it's just him and Bison. While they were trapped, Bison's men found the safe house and sold all the Clockwerk parts to Arpeggio, leaving one member of the Claw Gang with, well, the full set. Bentley has no chance in facing the man in conventional combat, and has to call out to Sly to activate various machines in the room to use as traps against him. It's a rather fun boss fight given how gimmicky it is, and the face-off between Big Strong and Small Smart is a real David versus Goliath situation. The delivery from Bentley as he calls for trap 2 is rather addictive, hearing how stressed he is and how well teamwork can get the gang through a tricky situation. Bison is fuming that he's been beaten by a turtle, and the gang get free. A tannoy system lets us know Arpeggio is picking up the battery in 1 minute, and the gang have exactly a minute to get to the battery. and a single chance to get back all their Clockwerk parts. Who knows what Arpeggio has planned for the whole set, but really it can't be good, especially if he accidentally or even intentionally resurrects the old bird. The gang take a short run over, all getting on top of the battery in their own ways, and this bittersweet ending closes out the penultimate chapter of the game. The ending cutscene is quite bleak. As Sly says, the focus of all their schemes have been stolen from them, and they all feel the failure in different ways.
Looking around the inside of the battery, I knew we all felt it. Failure. I was twitchy and ready for action. Any action. Bentley tried to make some sense of the situation by drawing up meaningless plans. But Murray took it the worst. He just sat there sobbing while the team van floated away over the horizon.
The team van even gets lost during this, and it's a rather somber note for an otherwise quite cheery game. There's no R&R, there's no downtime, just a slow float up to the blimp with everything taken from them. The gang have a bit of time to study up on Arpeggio in the air. An astute student with a feeble body that left him flightless, he yearned for a way to fix this by looking at Renaissance blueprints. He was the brain that repurposed all the Clockwerk parts for the Claw gang, and it's unclear but implied to be catastrophic his intention for the full set of parts. Sly's determined not to let Clockwerk be reborn, and to remind you, Clockwerk had hunted the Cooper family line since its first documentation, even killing Sly's parents. The next chapter is going to get tense and fast-paced as the gang have to do whatever they can to stop the worst from happening. On board, we've got a bit of a strange sight. The blimp itself is this scaffold of different platforms and pipes we can use to get around. All the guards are also seemingly flightless birds. I always found this stage to be my least favourite, as it's really not got a lot going on set dressing wise, besides the fact you're hurtling through the sky. It's a bit Mission Impossible, but I prefer the grounded feel of the game's heists. We're not doing much robbing here, you know. There's a little side blimp next to the main platform where Bentley believes the Clockwerk parts are, and he's also scared they're going to revive Clockwerk. Glide over and sneak in, the backdrop being super cool as you're doing this. When we get inside, it's a shocking sight. Clockwerk is in one piece, but seemingly not active yet. Sly suggests taking some recon photos to calm Bentley down, and there's a few points of interest. Some spinning electromagnetic platforms that seem to be holding the bird in place. Clockwerk himself, completely inanimate, no sign of rivets or bolts, but potentially vulnerable if we can take him apart quickly. And then there's also some mech eggs stored in the back. Arpeggio works with exotic tech, and these eggs can spit out radioactive mechs. Bentley detects voices from the front of the blimp, and we can eavesdrop on Arpeggio and Neela, confirming our suspicion that she's been working with him all along, the crafty little tiger. Arpeggio's now taken centre stage as the source of all our problems, with Neela as a secondary antagonist. We need a plan of attack, like right now, this second, and Bentley seems to believe those magnetic inducers are holding Clockwerk together. If we can reverse their polarity, then surely it'll pull him apart. Doing this requires pickpocketing some keys and then landing on top of each platform in a nice little combination of all of Sly's challenges so far. When they're all reversed, things don't go exactly to plan. In fact, they go opposite. Clockwerk dropping down fully assembled. We seem to have accidentally helped Arpeggio lock the parts into place. Sly breaks his stealth to try and appeal to both Neela and Arpeggio, but Arpeggio wants to join himself with Clockwerk to become immortal and gain a new flying body. He actually shits all over his Claw Gang members, saying that their scope was just too small and that what else would you use the parts for? He'd put us on the scent all the way back in Cairo using Neela as his retainer, complaining that she was carrying us through the first few heists, and her being grateful when we got arrested and she could go after those parts herself, even though she never managed to get any until closer to Bisson's time. Arpeggio was behind it all. Currently, he has an inanimate owl body sat there. The thing that made Clockwerk immortal was his hatred for the Cooper clan. The guy subsisted off this hatred. Sly attests that you can't make someone hate, but with the spice operation, we know that spice consumption can lead to aggression, and that's pretty similar, right? Arpeggio had used the Claw Gang to get the spice distributed, and Dimitri to get Paris fully saturated, and he's going to use a light show with John Bisson's battery and the Contessa's hypnosis techniques to make the whole city hate, and he'll feed off it. A perfect plan for immortality, until Neela pushes him aside and takes the body for her own, flying off. We're in deep doo-doo here. Things look grim, but Bentley has some initial plans to stop Clockwerk, as we're now referring to her. The Blimp will activate the hate hypnosis when we get above Paris, probably an automated measure, but we have some chances to stop her before we get there. She's currently drawing power from the Blimp itself, and if we can disable the power on board, we can make her vulnerable enough for an attack. There's 4 engines we need to take out using a combined effort from the whole gang. Just like Carmelita in Canada, we've got a new unique map hazard here with Clockwerk roaming across the whole overworld. Let's get to destroying those engines before we get eaten. First, Sly needs to pickpocket some keys for engine room 1, with Bentley following in once we get the doors unlocked. The guards are spread across the whole Blimp, and we'll skip over that as you've seen pickpocketing before. Sly opens up a little vent hatch for Bentley to get inside, and we've got a little shooting mission here. There's pairs of bulbs circling the engine, and we need to take them out in matching pairs. If you don't, you get shocked. When that's done, we climb up, and Bentley needs to bomb a load of power nodes while these drones try and shock him. There's no real cooldown on the bombs, so you can just run around ignoring most of the enemies as they're quite slow. This reveals an override switch, and that's engine 1 toast when we pull it. 3 more to go. Engine 2 has one of the most annoying missions in the game. There's a dynamite barrel on the Blimp, and we're used to these, right? Sly's going to need to walk it to the engine room to blow it up. The problem is, it's miles away, and there's 3 different blast charges we need to collect en route there to actually charge up the bomb enough to make it dangerous. This makes it a rather long and tedious stealth section with consequences if we die. With the bomb in place, that would be engine 2 gone. Engine 3 needs Murray to start, and the door is locked by a wall-mounted power station. Well, a few of them dotted everywhere, giving a rehash of destroying the alarm nodes we've seen in previous chapters. Though this time, we have to rely a bit more heavily on using the guards as projectiles, as there's not too much to throw, just dotted around. There's 5 to take out in total, then Murray opens a now unlocked door for Sly to come in. He then needs to get to the far end of the engine room, avoiding floor lasers while a giant field moves around slowly on the room. So there's a lot of jumping and sitting in place. On the second floor, it's the same here, we just have to hop on saw blades that will constantly activate, meaning a load of timed jumps. We then flip the override, and that's lights out for the third engine with 1 left. The last engine has Bentley hacking 3 terminals to get Murray access to the engine room. The hacking here takes a step up in difficulty, with us having to aim shots to bounce off walls, to take out mounted antivirus turrets. It makes sense, the exotic tech man would have the best security. With NordVPN disabled, we get Murray inside, and he needs to lock a load of batteries into the ceiling, then go to the second floor and belly flop them. This is all while guards come pouring into the room, and so the Murray has to crack a few skulls while he's doing this. It's a piece of cake. Get to the second floor, belly flop those batteries, and then flip the lever, and that's all the engines gone. With Neela now vulnerable, Bentley has some further plans. See, Inspector Fox, having encountered Clockwerk before, has contacted Bentley on shortwave radio and agreed to work with us to take out Clockwerk. We need to activate some radios so she can use her radar to actually find the Blimp, and then it's a case of helicopter fight against Clockwerk. To get to the radios, Sly uses an experimental mega jump pack to get to the top of a few giant towers. When we press R2, we do quite a large jump, and when you combine that with the basic acrobatics and our glider, it becomes a bit of cake getting to the top of the 4 towers. When they're active, we've got one last mission called Carmelita's Gunner, where she arrives via helicopter, and her and Sly get to talk once more.
Experienced tail gunner. Jump in and grab the gun. We've got a bird to take down.
That's not flirty chit-chat?
After asking us for back shots, we then take to the skies in quite a hard turret section. You need to shoot at Clockwerk while you both fly through the sky, all while shooting her missiles. She's really hard to aim at with all the jostling around. She has a few special missiles, ones that take multiple hits, and ones you need to make sure you don't shoot twice. It's all quite hectic, all with Carmelita talking through the background, either encouraging us or getting mad when we take hits. Eventually, we do enough damage to cause a serious problem. Clockwerk zones in on the safe house, taking the whole building and our friends with her, as the Blimp smashes into pieces. Sly needs to paraglide from the falling debris of the Blimp to make it over to Clockwerk and his friends, all while they're voicing their concerns over the earpieces. It's a really impressive set piece for how simple it is, and really pushes that tension for Sly racing to save his friends. They're in serious trouble here. When we get aboard Clockwerk, her and Sly get to speak. That's when we need to climb across her semi-destroyed body, avoiding her shots as we swing the cane at her head, forcing her to land in the waters of Paris. The gang are overjoyed, thinking they've beaten her, but she's still got some death throws to come at us with. Bentley reveals the source of her power is her hate chip, the thing that makes Clockwerk immortal. Murray's going to pry open her beak so Bentley can go to town with his bombs, and as Murray throws her beak open, we have this little holographic rendition of Neela's hate. Bentley's bombs seem to be enough to take out the hate chip and stop her from achieving immortality, and when the chip's removed from her, the beak falls. One final act of hate on the Cooper gang as it crushes Bentley. Murray pries the beak open, but the damage is already done.
Bentley, I'll save you!
Pick me up! I can't walk!
Bentley can't walk. He's been paralysed in a shock twist to cap off the end of the game. The gang are there at the end of the road. Carmelita destroys the hate chip, and with it, the rest of Clockwerk begins to wither and decay, aging before the gang's eyes. How ironic that the police officer Carmelita would lift the curse of the Cooper clan. She then goes to arrest the gang, and they're in no state to run away. Sly offers himself in exchange for them, and they leave their gear behind, Murray literally carrying Bentley, the wounds of this game deeper than we'll ever realise. Sly and his love manage to talk about their past, but then begin to talk about, well, everything else.
Got to talking. We spoke freely about our previous adventures, comparing notes and even getting in a few laughs. Then we started talking about, well, everything. Books, music, art. It was like we were on a first date.
When the 30-minute ride begins to take 2 hours, it seems the gang left Sly one last present as he manages to get away with Carmelita shouting from behind, even taking the bottle she was going to pop when she finally arrested us. The Cooper family curse is lifted, the parts of Clockwerk destroyed, and the Claw gang dismantled and arrested. Sly even got some one-on-one time with his love Carmelita. The fate of the gang is unknown, however, just making this ending bittersweet, with Bentley crippled and both him and Murray leaving their gear behind. Was it a happy ending? Probably not, but Sly has a way to make hope endure. Sly 2 had a very interesting story indeed. The Cooper gang's mission to dismantle the Claw gang and prevent Clockwerk's resurrection was successful, and it was the basis of this fun jaunt. There were several incredibly memorable villains, including the greasy sweet Dimitri, John Besson, and of course the double-crossing Neela. So much deeper emotional stakes compared to the first game, including Bentley being injured in the final mission, that we don't know the resolution to, and there was a climactic battle at the end to boot. The game is an absolute masterpiece and one of my all-time favourites, but despite this being a massive video already, there's actually one more game to talk about. Ocean's 11. Sly 3, Honour Among Thieves. Sly 3 is the last Sly game we're covering today. It's the end of the Sucker Punch trilogy, and while there is a fourth game made by Sanzaru, I'm not touching it. I personally had fun with it, but the story's fine left at the end of Sly 3. This game has it all. Pirate battles, dogfights, Chinese wedding photography. This is shaping up to be one of the longest videos on the channel, and if you like the content, the voice, whatever, feel free to subscribe. This is the last hurdle. Anywho, Sly 3 came out in 2005, a year after Sly 2, and answers a lot of questions we've got from the ending of that game. We're constructing a larger team for the biggest heist yet in Cooper history. Let's get to it, and expect spoilers for all 3 games. Sly 3 opens in a similar fashion to the other games, straight out of the boot screen. We're on Kane Island in the South Pacific, with Sly skulking around some rather heavy fortifications and some mutant enemy elephants with wings. We're introduced to Sly, the thief in case you weren't familiar by this point, and we're straight into a Binocucom call. Sly is actually sticking to his codename for once, and we're trying to help Sly break into the equivalent of Fort Knox. It's a nice touch that after Sly 2, we're taking Bentley a bit more seriously rather than laughing at his field approach. We've got a few new members of the gang, including a demolition specialist, a radio controller, a recovery man, a diver, and a telekinetic specialist. A few more members than the 3 we're used to. Despite the ending of the last game, it seems the gang are back to their thieving ways, but there's no visual sign of Murray. Our RC specialist uses a pink chopper to remove an obstruction from Sly's path. The telekinetic specialist, who seems to speak in some unknown gibberish like Gerald from the Clarkson's farm, drops a pole for us to climb over. And our bomb specialist, Agent Monarch, shoots a missile to give us a door into the compound, the one we've just snuck around. The place is ridiculously secure, with even the vents containing laser traps and us needing our diver to get rid of some traps in our way that are actually in the roof of a lab of sorts. We sit atop an elevator as an elephant and a monkey named Dr. M get in underneath us. Dr. M has some weird battery apparatus on his head and seems to be a bit of an evil mastermind, a full plug head. He even takes out one of his own guards in a bit of a twisted dialogue.
No, you'll die. Any second now. Yes? Water leaking into the lab? I'm on my way down. Oh, and get a janitor for the lab elevator. Richard's got sloppy.
Bentley reveals we're trying to break into the Cooper vault, whatever that is. Let your imagination run wild. We set off some alarms, but managed to turn off the security by entering in Richard's security code, and we can see Dr. M has been busy setting a whole battery of drills on the Cooper vault door. It seems it was meant for Sly to open though, requiring a Cooper cane. As the door swings open, the monkey shoots it shut. Sly tells us this vault belongs to his family, but M says it belongs to him. He has the deed to the island and demands our cane. We're trespassing. Bentley shoots at him, operating out of a high-tech wheelchair following his run-in with Clockwerk at the end of Sly 2. He still seems pretty mobile as the two run away from the now flying Dr. M, equipped with some sort of missile launcher. As the two get onto the coast of Cane Island after the failed entry, Bentley tries to lead Sly to a boat they've got stored and gets grabbed by some big kaiju mutant. We need to fight off Dr. M, who seems to be plugged into the thing, but our cane doesn't seem to do any damage until we throw it in the creature's mouth. It's spitting it miles across the island and grabbing Sly, taking us into our first cartoon cutscene of the game. Sly's life is flashing before his eyes, and this game will take place in those flashbacks. We get the spiel that he's from an ancient line of thieves, and he was next in line to take the name. He was robbed of his childhood back in Sly 1 when the Fiendish Five killed his parents, and he met his lifelong friends, Bentley the Thinker and Murray the Doer, and the Cooper Gang was born. They thought the good times would never end, until of course the odds caught up with them at the end of Sly 2. Since then, Sly had met with a man named McSweeney, the doer of his dad's gang. He told Sly of the Cooper Vault, a place where the Cooper line had been adding their fortunes, adding to the pile their ancestors left. When he and Bentley head off to find the island, they see Dr. M had set up shop, building a paranoid fortress. Sly realises they'll need a world-class army of thieves to break in, and to collect the inheritance. That's exactly what Sly plans to do. The whole game takes place in this flashback as Sly's life's flashing before his eyes, and so we're going to jump straight into Chapter 1, An Opera of Fear. Getting into the vault requires a team, and since Sly 2, Murray has left the gang, his brute strength would be needed. When Bentley was injured after Sly 2, Murray blamed himself, eventually leaving the gang out of his own guilt. There was a promotional comic that Sucker Punch made with DC that details this. They tried to console him, but he tells them he's finding his spiritual centre and it's something he needs to do. Murray went to the outback, learning something called the Dream Time from an Aboriginal guru. He's been travelling the world on spirit walks, but has been seen in Venice. Sly hopes he doesn't cross paths with the local mob boss there, Don Octavio, a successful opera singer in his youth, destined to be the next big thing. Right as his career started to take off, musical taste changed. It was all about rock and roll, and nobody cared for opera anymore. He got involved with the mob. Sly and Bentley need to watch their backs heading into his turf, but it'll be all worth it if they can get Murray back. For once, we're not aiming a heist, we're trying to get our lifelong pal back. We get this nice intro to Venice as Sly crosses the rooftops, avoiding masquerade-wearing mobsters to get into a safe house. Our first mission is at the Venetian Police HQ. It's a giant domed building, and they're having a bit of a struggle with dealing with Octavio's private security forces that are patrolling the streets. Sly climbs up and sneaks in, hoping to get some information from them. When we do pop in and check the jail cells for Murray, it seems there's another old friend there instead. Dimitri, the Claw Gang's spice pusher. He'd rather see us busted than help us find Murray, especially how he caused his money printing operation to go bust. We get our first section of choosing dialogue in these games as we try and convince him to help us.
Famous for. I always pegged you as the bigger man in these types of situations.
I'm a big man. Big with the payback and the sex appeal. Got that, Ant? I control the beat on this track. You're just a dancer.
We say we could bust him out, but he has some concerns. We then settle with a plan to get the cops' attention to spring him while they're gone, and he'll help us get in touch with Murray. The key to his cell is in the head cop lady's office, and so we start crawling under the police desk. There's another old friend, as you could have guessed by the description, as it seems to be Carmelita investigating Octavio. She switches on the lights, but they keep cutting out, so we need to time our crawls here to avoid being seen. When we get the key and unlock Dimitri's cell, we use a new safe cracking mechanic too, and he tells us where to find Murray. We'll then jump out to distract the cops, and already in the first section we've had, 2 new mechanics and a whole build-up on previous characters.
Hello, assorted meatheads!
It's really cool. Carmelita gives chase as the two get their first bit of flirting, and you might notice this is the 3rd voice actor we've been through with Carmelita.
Used to know.
She grew up and stopped taking grief from guys like you.
It's another chase here with her shooting at us as we climb around, but you might spot the graphics have jumped up alongside the new mechanics, and the scene we're running through is so detailed and cool. Murray pops out of nowhere, dressed more like a monk than the wrestler we know and love, and before the two can chat, they jump in the sewers, popping out in a different part of Venice away from Carmelita. Sly says he owes Murray, and we can see he's gone full whole hog on this Dreamtime learning. We try to reason with him about Bentley not being his fault and try to recruit him, but he refuses to leave without his guru's permission, and his guru said he can only leave when the black water runs clear. He tells Sly his story off camera, and that's mission 1 done. We're treated to a slideshow recapturing what we've just covered and giving us a new goal. We need to deal with Venice's tar pollution problem, and we know Don Octavio is somehow involved. We could do a bit more than the police can though, as we're not bound by the law, and that will start with us following the Don and breaking into his opera house to gather some intel. It's no sequel without some recon to start us off, and we'll need it to deal with this new villain if we stand a chance of recruiting Murray back to the gang. Let's start with tailing the Don. We need to take some incriminating photos of him being involved with the city's tar epidemic. The police are looking for whoever's doing the polluting, and Murray won't leave until it's done. We can catch him in the act and hopefully pass those photos over to Interpol to bury him with police power. It's similar to the other following missions we've done in previous games, except for you've got a cat making little opera noises this time. We have to position ourselves in quite specific places to catch him on camera, normally while evading being spotted by guards. We get substantial evidence, but with zero clue why he's flooding the waterways and aquariums with tar. The scheme isn't exactly obvious. We do get up close and personal with him by hitching a ride on the Ferris wheel he's sat in for a bit of exposition. The Ferris wheel is some sort of pump for tar, and he's apparently doing all of this in anticipation of an upcoming opera recital. This tar scheme is somehow related into forcing people to be opera fans. We bust open his Ferris wheel pump with the help of Bentley's hacking and take out a few guards in the process. Breaking into his opera house might give us a bit of actual information though, and we just need to sneak in so that we can let Bentley in and hack a computer inside. There's an option to wear 3D glasses for some sections of this game, and this is one of them, a throwback to when everything in the early 2000s needed 3D involved. They introduced this weird button pressing in time with the NPCs as well to get through some doors as we go through the various back rooms of the opera house. Weird stylized pipes making it look like a wine cellar of some sort. There's some platforming over the underground canals of Venice, and Octavio reports back to his guards about the success of their tar pumping operation. He's also, you guessed it, not a nice guy. We get to a big central computer room and Bentley begins his hack, reminding me of India and Sly 2, but just missing Murray's presence. There's some nicely placed fire pits to help us though. With the data downloaded, we'll analyse it later when it's slideshow time. We've got one last mission for this little segment where Bentley had listened in on Octavio's comms and found out he'd hired the Blue Viper gondola gang to attack Carmelita. We've got a bit of a canal battle section here where we have to dodge ships and obstacles whilst firing at the Blue Vipers with a mounted turret. Already, the levels seem a lot more intricate than in the last game, with a heavy amount of cinematography involved and a lot of new mechanics thrown in. Sly 3 takes what Sly 2 had and tries to amplify it in a bit of an over-the-top way. This might be to some people's taste more than others. With the gang out of the way and Carmelita safe, we get a funny cutscene where she says how boring Venice is.
Another uneventful patrol. This city's beautiful, but a bit quiet for my taste.
Sly also admits he's got a thing for her, and they really push that angle in this game more so than normal. Sly ends up stashing the police boat we used and leads us on to our next slideshow. After decrypting the files we hacked earlier, we found out Octavio is pumping the tar from under the buildings of Venice so that he can sink them at a press of a button. He plans on showcasing this during his big opera recital, and to counter this, the gang will destroy the advertisements for the show, hoping to stop a crowd from coming in and stop the show itself. The blueprints to the main tar vacuum will also be needed as we're going to try and do some sabotage, and they've been hidden in a local coffee house by Octavio, and Sly will need to use a disguise for once to get inside. We also need to use Carmelita and her goons to take out some hired muscle, and finally, we're going to try and convince Murray to help us here using some of his Dreamtime training. A lot at once, I know, but it does lead up to the quote-unquote heist of this chapter. First, let's see about getting Mary involved. Mary and Bentley meet for the first time in this game, with Mary seemingly a bit uncomfortable, faced with Bentley in his wheelchair. Bentley asks where's the Murray and his old friend, and we get a rather touching scene between the two. Murray refuses to help in any way involving violence, he's sworn it off, but will help if we can keep things peaceful. We'll need him to enter the Dreamtime ball form and propel himself skywards, bouncing on exposed tar drums that only open up when we're not on the ground near them. It's a bit of a strange section, basically controlling a bouncy ball instead of the bruiser we're used to, but it's very effective for taking out the tar drums. Afterwards, Bentley thanks him, and they go their separate ways for now. I'll let Sly and Bentley introduce the next mission for destroying all the advertisements.
I hear ya. If no one shows up for him to extort with his building sinking scheme, then why would he bother with the demonstration? Excavating all that tar seems like a big operation. You'd think he'd hold off until he had an audience.
Exactly. Now, I've cobbled together a few explosives powerful enough to destroy the anchors to those balloons.
We need to run some very short fused bombs to key points in Venice, and you don't have a lot of spare time before they blow up on your back, so make sure you're moving swiftly. One of the advertising blimps gets snagged on a nearby side made up to look like Don Octavio, and so we have to climb up this giant tower to smack it free, destroying his visage in the process. Bentley comes under some stress though as we do this, and we have to cross town to come face to face with Octavio, breaking into the fireworks shop. We have to chase him around town now while he's got Bentley over his head, and he sets off various laser defenses while we do this. Like all the chase sections in the games before though, there's no difficulty keeping up. When we catch up to him, he throws Bentley at us in a very opera delivery and he declares we're dead. Let's go for a change of pace and deal with the Vincennetti goons, or should I say, get Sly to get the police involved.
Hey, all you fake cops, go home. We don't need no more stupid thugs in Venezia.
With a bit of misdirection, we get the police mercenaries and the Vincennettis fighting. These are the hired thugs Octavio's using. Bentley is praised for a devious plan, which won't be the last time either in this game, and then we're in control of Carmelita. She's got some nice controls in this game, and she feels really powerful. She has this giant crosshair covering most of the screen that we'll use to aim our shock pistol, blasts homing in on anything we aim at. She can also super jump by holding circles, so she doesn't need Sly's acrobatics. We strut about, providing police backup in a very fun shooting section, and it's nice to get behind the wheels of Carmelita for once. When everything's clear, she thanks her goons and heads into the police station, even getting her own job complete screen. Then we've got the disguise mission, and with it the introduction to the disguise mechanic as a whole, something new to this chapter in the trilogy. Octavio keeps his pump blueprints behind paintings in 3 different coffee houses, but there's guards out front and they're on a rota checking up on each other, so Sly will need to use a disguise, which we use like any other power-up to talk to them. The guards then give us a prompt for a password and we bat it back at him, Bentley feeding it to us through an earpiece. Bentley's shocked the disguise worked given how shocking Sly's Italian accent is. He goes in to open some of these painting safes. A fun little puzzle where we need to find a safe code in the backdrop of a painting. All of them seem to reference other levels in the Sly games. For instance, the first is a Jean Besson painting. We do this with 2 other coffee shops, one guard excited about his mum's pasta sauce and giving us some of the best dialogue going.
Spaghetti tonight and I'm starving. I'm gonna eat like 3, no 4 plates of food.
I guess you really like cooking.
Mamma mia, I want to be buried in her sauce. It's heaven.
I don't know why I found it so funny. Sly himself even talks about it while we're looking through a Miss Ruby Bayou painting. The third coffee shop has one of the guards getting us to find out his nickname before he'll let us in, and we just do a bit more disguise work talking to other guards. Once we've dealt with Tony, the killer bee, we get in, and Bentley can deal with a Contessa painting to get the last blueprint. The 2 race back to the safe house, and then we get our heist prep. It's Operation Tar Be Gone, and I'm going to leave the plan a surprise as it's a fun reveal, so let's get into it. The heists are a lot more grandiose and twisty going to Sly 3, and I can't ruin that by giving you the plan up front. Sly uses disguise once again to get into Octavio's opera house, mere minutes before the show's about to start. We parrot off the password back to a guard and get warned to not be long inside. I used to love the delivery of Sly's VA on these passwords too. I don't know what it was about it just got stuck in my head. We have to rattle off a few more passwords with Bentley running support in our ear as we head deeper into the opera house. We think we're about to get stuck on a double button door when the worst happens and Octavio comes out, and he doesn't recognise us. Luckily, he asks for a password and it checks out, and we butter him up a little bit.
Tenor bass, tenor, tenor.
Okay.
He helps us with this double button door, unwittingly spelling the destruction of his own pumps as we let Bentley in through the sewers. Bentley then has to bomb a load of key pipes in the pump room, mostly on spinning platforms, which take a bit of special placement. When they're all dealt with, the pump is out of commission and Octavio is about to perform. It's an aria originally meant to be a duet, so to get Octavio in a key position on the stage, Bentley will challenge him to an opera duel, and this works out to be another Simon Says type game, similar to Miss Ruby and the dancing in Rajan's palace. Bentley's vocals are a bit skew-whiff though, as you'll see. Sly starts to untie the chandelier above the stage in the background, and we really start to get under Octavio's skin as we continue to sing.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
Eventually, we get to see Bentley hit a sexy high note as the chandelier comes crashing down, but just as it's about to hit Octavio, Carmelita stops it, attempting to arrest everyone. Octavio takes to the canals and we use the stash boat from earlier to chase him, avoiding police boats and laser traps as we shoot him out of the water. Taking him down gets him crashing back where the stage was, and he somehow survives. I guess cats have 9 lives, right? We tell him he's beat and that we just wanted the demolition switch. Murray's also here watching from the rooftops. Murray claims the destruction was cool, and Octavio in response blows up a nearby building. I don't know if he took Murray as being cheeky or if he thought this was a way to get new fans, but Bentley calls him a monster and gets batted out of his chair in a bit of a parallel to Bentley getting injured in Sly 2. It's Murray's chance to actually save Bentley as he's calling out to him. Murray's rage then gets the best of him as he rips off his necklace and begins the boss fight with another great opener.
That does it! I'll floss my teeth with your spine!
Octavio's too fast to fight conventionally, so we need to get him stuck in tar when Sly releases it to be able to actually land a blow on him. This goes back and forth for a while, with us having to take him to a second arena, and he starts using his opera skill as a ranged attack. Swat him down in quite a cinematic fight for the chapter, and Octavio realises his time is gone. A new generation has taken his place, both in music and crime. The police close in, and the gang get away as the chapter finishes. In the outro, the two go and get Bentley back in his chair, and the three manage to sneak out away from Carmelita and the police. Octavio got 30 years behind bars for his crimes, but found incredible success as a singer in jail, as most of his old fan base were there, giving him a nice ending. Murray puts on his gloves and his mask, and well, the Murray has returned. Chalk up our muscle for the vault heist, and on to chapter 2. The gang were reunited, but little by little they learn that Murray's heart just isn't in it. Without express permission from his guru to stop his training, he'll never be comfortable, so as good friends, they decide to head over to Australia to speak to him. The guru is a spiritual specialist, able to blend into the scenery and take over the minds of weaker creatures, and this outback mystic could be a good candidate for the vault heist. Getting to the outback, things had changed since Murray was last there, miners setting up shop and the guru nowhere to be seen. We're in Udemu, Australia, and we get to see this lovely overview of Sly running about to the safe house. Kangaroos, dingoes, and tons of heavy machinery in the background. This place is very open and very remote, the implication being that the miners are destroying a site of natural beauty. They'll get rough defending their claim too. Murray sends Sly to go and find the guru to break the news that he wants to end his Dreamtime training, and Sly is looking forward to meeting him given the sheer respect that his friend shows the man. Heading up to a cave above the miner's bar under Murray's direction, Sly fails to find the guru. Murray directs us to his hut and drops some spaghetti out of his pockets as he tells us about it.
Well, thanks for speaking of it. I'm headed for the hut.
They maintain a sense of realism with the environments in Sly 3, which I credit the level design for. While everything has that stylized aesthetic, it's not immersion breaking. You really do get immersed in the mindset of the characters. Getting to his hut, Murray tells us how he's tried to negotiate with the miners before, but in anger, and that there was probably some sort of scuffle. Bentley assumes they may have turned a resource storage site into a makeshift stockade, and that's most likely where the guru is. As we advance onwards, Bentley tells us that the miners have no respect for the Aboriginal sacred sites, and they're currently drilling into all the natural sites around, some knowledge to pocket for later. When Sly speaks to the guru, you'll notice the guru doesn't speak in any discernible language, needing Sly to translate for us.
Seriously won't leave without your gear?
He won't leave the prison without the moonstone and walking staff that was stolen from him first, framing our next couple of jobs. He's also insisting we purify Aya's rock of all the miners, and he'll be free to use his powers. He's been impressed by Sly and wants to meet Murray and Bentley individually, which will need a bit of spelunking. He's also mentioned the miners have unearthed a supernatural artifact called the Mask of Dark Earth, which we'll need to keep an eye on. The Guru was meant to be the guardian keeping this artifact at bay, but with him locked up, it's gotten out, and we don't know the impact of this just yet, but trust me, we will. Mission time. Let's go for the magic staff and the moonstone. Sly reckons the miners have stashed things in the mines. Funny that. Bentley finds us one mine with the highest foot traffic, thinking that's the most secure, and Sly heads in with another prompt for 3D. I left my glasses back in 2005, so none of that's here. The mine sections all play out quite similarly to each other, with us crossing vast open spaces populated by tracks and drills and accented with some guards here and there. They've obviously got a massive operations, but the sections do get a bit samey, and it's hard to make a cave look different to another cave in these games. Opening a chest at the back of the mine gets us the moonstone, though it's been booby-trapped with a light-sensitive detonator. We've got to run out of the place on quite a relaxed time limit as guards ambush us, and the machinery we came in on grinds to a halt, causing us to take a different route. When we're out in the open, the booby trap disables itself, and we're on for a second mine for the walking staff. It's a slightly darker cave with the Guru's moonstone providing some illumination and quite a nice visual section. Getting the staff gives us a horde of dingoes to run past, and Sly comments on them booby-trapping a stick.
Another booby trap? For a stick? These guys are paranoid. And from the sound of it, they've called in reinforcements.
And how paranoid these guys are. Either they know something we don't, or they're very possessive. Get out with a stick for the mission to end. We then cut to Murray going to revisit his guru. Currently only Sly can get up to him, so we need Murray to go through a cave first. He's worried that the guru won't be proud of his progress as a mystic, and Bentley sets him straight. Murray's time in the mines is slightly different to Sly's, mostly due to his acrobatic ineptitude, requiring us to use guards to smash rocks to get through obstacles. Something to note in this game too is that Murray can pickpocket now, just having to pick up the guards first. The characters still play wildly differently, but it's a nice quality of life change. Murray gets stuck behind a pneumatic door and has to overload it using his ball form, but don't worry, it won't become Murray's gimmick, I promise. After getting through several pistons, we come face to face with the Mask of Dark Earth, or at least someone wearing it. It makes the wearer massive and more aggressive, and in this instance we can use that to advantage, throwing the goon into a load of drills to open up our path. The mask actually runs away on its own, leaving more questions than answers, but Murray can go and speak to his guru, clearing the path for Bentley later. He holds the guru in some high regard, getting really nervous when asking him about rejoining the gang. He hopes the guru will come too, but to do that, we'll need to deal with the miners, their tools, and the Mask of Dark Earth. Alongside the staff and the orb, we need to clear out some miners from Aya's rock to make the moon spirits happy and restore the guru's powers. It's very supernatural, openly for once on the side of the Cooper gang, which is a nice change. The solution is surprisingly technological though. We're going to use a massive safe house sized truck in another minigame unique to the zone, similar to the canal boats. There's some giant scorpions here we can force out of the ground by making the miners dig too deep like we're in Moria with a Balrog. Smack some guards clear, set it in motion, causing the scorpions to surface. Murray then needs to collect the red warrior scorpions using his truck by flipping onto them and catching them in nets on the top. The ground's hot though and will cause our wheels to melt if we don't return to the centre of the room or run over scorpions, which creates a nice challenge. Halfway through, the water disappears, making it more complex. I like this section. We let the scorpions off at Aya's rock mine, and a dingo with a poor Australian accent gets mulched, driving him and his pals out and restoring the guru's supposed magic.
Giant scorpions? Run for it, mates! Uh-oh!
Bentley goes to meet him following all this to return his gear, giving him quite a respectful welcome in Bentley fashion. He's probably read up on him and the Dreamtime, looking at how knowledgeable he's been about it so far. Turns out the guru is actually magic, and he can transform himself into bits of scenery, and he uses this to get the guards to investigate. He can also jump on their backs and use them as walking missiles. His first official mission for the gang is making use of this to throw miners into their own drill equipment. I've got to say, as we're playing as the second character, not from the official trio, They've done a really good job making the other characters really enjoyable. They all play quite uniquely, and this little koala packs a punch. He's also child-sized, which gives us a different perspective of the map, making him feel, almost a bit newer. Charge 4 goons into 4 drills, take your pick, any of them will work, and be given an expansion on that same gimmick. We have to charge a few goons into a generator, powering a big drill, over a bit of a jumping course. With the mining equipment then silenced, the Dreamtime spirits rejoice as Guru joins the gang, at least for the rest of Australia, and we roll on to the next slideshow. We still need to rid the place of miners and deal with the Mask of Dark Earth. Bentley has come up with a slightly evil plan showing a darker side of him, getting a crocodile used to the taste of miner flesh. And remember, these guys are just doing their jobs. It's something to keep an eye on as he's a bit more devious in this game, and we need to take over a pub and drill for some oil too. The pub mission was one of my most remembered in these games, as the Cooper gang enter a lemonade bar and try to assert their dominance. We need to beat them in a chug-off, and as an alumni for a university rugby team, this is how we settled most disputes too. Sly smashes through it, and Murray does it in record speed, being their fastest drinker. Like a good boat race, we leave our weakest drinker to last, with Bentley having a really slow pint time and spilling more than he drank, to the anger of the dingoes. It devolves into a big bar fight, and they, rightly accuse us of cheating, and each member of the Cooper gang gets a bit of time to fight here, with the perspective shifting between all of them as you take out goons in quite a cinematic fashion, which I really enjoyed. Eventually, another dingo comes in, wearing the Mask of Dark Earth, with his giant size, making it so we can't fight him conventionally. Instead, Sly needs him to be weakened by either Murray throwing a barrel of lemonade or Bentley setting off a bomb, and a nice bit of cooperation between the lifelong friends. We never normally see this level of cooperation outside of the heists, and it was a good scene really cementing the power the gang has when they help each other. The mask runs away to everyone's surprise, and it's spelling trouble with this mask. We're going to need to eventually destroy it. The oil fields are a bit of an on-rail section, with Sly using a mobile crane to protect a few power stations by throwing guards at a fence. And it gave me awful flashbacks to Munch's Odyssey. It overstayed its welcome slightly. Throw guards and then eventually balance that with putting rocks onto a catapult. We need to gather a sample of radioactive oil, very carefully, but Murray has other plans.
Need to be extremely careful in retrieving a small sample. Fly, look at me! I'm glowing! Woo!
Then for the infamous croc mission, we need to feed some mine workers to a crocodile in equal measure so that it really gets a taste for flesh. We finish it off with a flashlight guard, and eventually it leaves it swamped to start hunting down guards that come close in quite evil fashion. The mask gets away once more, and then we're on to the big heist, as it were. It's called Operation Moon Crash, and so let's get into it and just skip the planning phase. Firstly, we use the Guru's power of mind control to destroy the miner's gyrocopter. It'll fly off if we get too close to it, so we need to aim a charging guard at it and then let go, sending the meat missiles directly into the thing. With it out of the way, we can engage in some aerial operations, hoisting Murray up in the sky covered in radioactive oil. The mask's ancient enemy is the Moon Spirit, and his round glowing form is a good approximation. The plan was to drop Murray on it and destroy it that way, but unfortunately it's a Cooper heist, so there's going to be twists. Carmelita has come to Australia and accidentally got the mask stuck on her face. We first try putting a few sleep darts into Karma Larger here to pry off the mask after. She's a bit tricky to hit, but not impossible. Unfortunately, the darts seem to have the opposite effect, interacting with the mask somehow, making her even bigger for all the Rule 34 artists playing the game. We drive off in a giant truck, being chased by this kaiju of a fox lady, and she starts to throw dynamite at us, and so we have to use the crane again to throw it back at her. This just enrages her more, making her larger and impossible to run from. So the gang decide the best route is to target the mask directly. The gang have a lovely worried conversation about this, and a joke from Bentley about climbing her forms our off-the-cuff plan as Sly moves in. Climb up the woman in one of the most memorable chapter endings of the series to smack the loops fastening the mask to her face off. Her mercenaries then take it out with a barrage of shockfire, accidentally taking themselves out in the process, ending the chapter. Being a gentleman, the gang keep watch over the unconscious Carmelita, enjoying some time with her camera and giving her some evidence. When morning breaks, the natural landscape is revealed with all the miners gone, and it's beautiful. The gang then make a quick exit before they can be arrested, and for the first time in Cooper gang history, the three were now a 4, with their telekinetic expert, the Guru, in tow. Chapter 2 had some issues, but overall it was enjoyable. It doesn't help that the chapters just get better from here on out. So let's see what the next one has in store. Bentley was obsessed, every night poring over the blueprints to Dr. M's fortress, coming to the unfortunate conclusion that the gang would need an RC specialist with piloting skills far exceeding his own. Trawling techie chat rooms, he encountered a mechanist called Penelope from Holland, and she initially politely declined his request to join the team, citing that she only works for the best. Her idea of the best is a big-time dogfighting champ called the Black Baron, a pilot so good he'd set up an international dogfighting championship. She says if the gang could beat the Baron at his own game, she'd know they're serious and would consider their offer. Bentley and Murray put a plane together while Sly takes a crash course in piloting. They'll prove the Cooper gang is up to the challenge. Bentley also seems to fall for her, with both of them majorly catfishing the other on the chat rooms. Let's get into Flight of Fancy, as it's a very good chapter. We're in Kinderjik, Holland, and the real life photos kind of line up pretty well with the zone. Lots of windmills, a big river, everything you'd expect. Carmelita's here, and she seems actively hostile to the Baron's goons for whatever reason, so he's probably not all that legit. We see the rest of the gang in this run to the safe house, which is a nice touch. We're in a hotel room this time, as we're actual legitimate competitors in the Aces competition. This isn't a thieving heist for once. Mission 1 has Sly getting dressed to the nines in his pilot's outfit and mingling with some of the other guests. Bentley needs us to find out who the competition is and who we're flying against. The roster's kept a secret, as in previous years, competitors would sneak out and sabotage their opponents' planes the night before the tourney. We've only got one plane, and our opponents here have fleets of them, so we need to be a bit careful. Only the event staff know of the roster, and it turns out our friend Dimitri has been hired to give colour commentary on the dogfights, and so we need to find him and have a little chat. He's working at the bar at the moment. We've got another one of those choose your own dialogue sections where we try to convince him, starting with intimidating him a little. Dimitri does want to help us, but the Baron has eyes and ears, and fists as he mentioned, so we need to get him on side. We appeal to his sense of fashion, like he's Zoolander. If he can outdress him, maybe he can outsmart him, right? And we agree to owe Dimitri a favour in a few months in exchange for the information. Not a feed your fish kind of favour, as he says, but an old school mafia blood pact favour. The roster is in a painting safe in the Black Baron's hangar. As we're told this, he comes in and he's exceptionally British and weirdly the only non-Anthro person in the room.
And welcome, my esteemed comrades of the skies. Welcome, welcome to another year of the Aces competition.
It turns out our old friend from Sly 1, Mugshot, is competing too. One of the fiendish five who took out Sly's parents, and he's probably still mad about Mesa City. The Baron lays down the law that nobody is to leave the hotel at night to keep things a fair competition. If we're caught out after hours, we'll be beaten within an inch of our lives. We don't actually get to speak to the Baron or Mugshot just yet, but we do need to break into the Baron's hangar. We go to the top of his castle, and the only disguise we've got will only work in Venice, so we've got to be at least slightly stealthy moving around the guards and the patrol blimps. We climb up the castle and can hear him talking about the competition about to unfold, and he's rather confident in his team's abilities. There's no drawbridge switch for Bentley to get into the castle, but we do make creative use of a catapult to get Bentley up. When he's inside, we have to avoid some rather advanced laser grids, probably Penelope's doing, as we examine a Rajan-themed painting, and then realise there's a few empty safes here. The roster can still be found though, and we're on to our first preparatory slideshow. We'll be facing off firstly against Team Iceland and Team Belgium tomorrow in the semi-finals round. Each of them have 15 planes, giving us a 30-1 odds. We need to pin the teams against each other to even stand a chance. We'll steal some items from both teams and use them to frame the other. Bentley will also be setting up some defences in the Team Cooper hangar just in case anyone comes for retribution. Let's start with the armoured truck. It contains Iceland's lucky ice sculpture, and we need to steal it and plant some Belgian dirt in there. We're going to start with stealing a Belgian handkerchief, and Mary will have to get one of them laughing to the point where Bentley can pickpocket them. The guru will be helping us get into the truck. Making them laugh involves some of that branch dialogue, and we're told they're really hard to get to laugh. Murray does a few different tactics here. His impressionism is a little bit weak, but his practical humour seems to get him going.
Someone put their fist down their throat? Ta-da! Hey, fish! Stuck! I need help! Hey!
Bentley comes in and grabs the handkerchief using a little magnet pulley device. Then the Guru has some fun charging some of the local guards into the back of this armoured truck. It goes as you can imagine, though midway through it starts spitting out self-defense traps. When it's open, Sly plants the goods, and then that's one team framed. To get the others on side, we need to break into Team Iceland's room and grab one of their helmets. Murray uses a paddle boat to steer a raft through the trapped sewers underneath the place, showing the lengths the Baron's gone to try and ensure there's a fair competition. Iceland had been out partying all night and has set up a few improv burglar traps that will wake them if we trip any of them. We get out unscathed and sneak over to Team Belgium's hangar. Murray has to use his ball form to remain short enough to not get hit by lasers, but dangerous enough to smash some anchors keeping the plane hoisted. When it drops and it's destroyed, we plant the helmet inside and we're done. Both teams should now be gunning for each other rather than us tomorrow. Bentley's traps do also come in handy when Baron goons bribed by Team Mugshot plan to stop by and cause some mischief. The big man himself pops open our door and is not too happy about Mesa City. We can't lock down the place with him there, and he's so strong our fists won't do anything. We need to use a switch in the hangar to send an engine block hurtling into him while goons try to take us out. Eventually we do enough damage though. He clears off, but he sent goons under the sewers towards us, and we have two different routes under the hangar filled with traps. We're going to have to use those traps to take out the goons, with Murray as a backup in case any get through. It calls back to the Bad Mojo collection in Sly 2, but it does take quite a while to finish with. Penelope then gets in touch with us, seemingly angry at the double-crossing paid-off goons, and we get to experience her gameplay using a special RC chopper and its specialised Yank 86 to throw guards skywards to their doom. We need to do this with various guards and even some tanks, having to drive in opposite directions to get enough leverage. They're all attacking our hangar, and she's going to stick it to these chumps for selling out her boss. She's a very loyal gal. With the guards gone, we're into the dogfighting itself. Sly has his own Cooper biplane here, and the objective, as you might have guessed, is to shoot down all our opponents while not getting shot down ourselves. We have a set amount of ammo that can be replenished by flying under bridges to get more, and it really reminded me of the flying sections in the Spyro games as we chase down different targets here. It's a fun mission to break up the groundwork, and we get to hear Dimitri congratulate us as we head towards the finals and our bout with the Black Baron.
Tip top outstanding! Team Cooper is going to the finals! Let the crowd say yay!
We need to do a bit of prep for this, as our opponents are Team Mugshot and Team Baron. The rules are different here as well. To win, we just need to take out the Baron himself, as he was the final winner. If Mugshot does this first, it's game over, so we'll need to deal with him ahead of the final. Potentially we can set him up with Carmelita in the area. We still need to deal with the Baron's pilots and any backup he can call in. Starting with Mugshot, we need to get him to face with Carmelita. Sly will get Carmelita somewhere key for us, while Bentley challenges Mugshot to a bit of a punch-up outside. We could try various different tactics, and he's not too keen because 1, the Baron has him on watch after last night, and 2, Bentley's a cripple, like it's not exactly fair. The only thing that really works is insulting his mum. After getting the two to meet in the town square, they face off. After all, Mugshot is still a wanted criminal, and Carmelita did bust him once before, and he's really angry. We get to play as her during this fight, and it's fairly simple as long as you keep jumping and strafing as much as possible, while, keeping aim on him. These clips make it seem difficult, but it really wasn't. I was just hand-fisting the controller. With him in jail, their team has lost its biggest pilot. Dealing with the Baron pilots needs us to tranquilize a giant wolf and then slap the Guru on top. We use special sleep darts for this mission, which need to be shot at incredibly close range, and this thing could 2-hit Bentley, and smell him if he's got the wind blowing against him, so we need to be super careful. The meat of the mission comes when it's asleep, with the Guru possessing the giant wolf and using him to mow down 15 of the Baron's guards, which also double as his pilots. With the aerial odds even somewhat, Bentley just has to deal with the chance the Baron may bring him back up. There's several computers around the overworld, and by hacking the ones in the windmills, we're able to access aircraft control as it's all on one localized system. We brought a special upgrade here to give Bentley a triple jump to get to these windmills, and as we engage in some of the hacking we've seen previously, it's just got a bit more polish to it in this game. So there's little orbs we need to carry, and various different kinds of antivirus avatars coming at us. There's a lot more variety, and it takes a little while, but once we've hacked it, it turns out the code's unstable, and we can actually take advantage of this to send the windmill's blades soaring into the sky like some sort of throwing star, something we'll take advantage of later. We're ready for the finals in Operation Turbo Dominant Eagle. We'll start with a little bit of prep. So the Baron has been known to use his Blimp gunships to turn the tide when things get bleak for him. so Sly needs to do a high elevation gliding job, putting trackers on all of them in case we need to make use of those windmill throwing stars. Murray then uses his boat to take out the Black Baron's communications antenna, which is tied to one of the windmills, cutting off his comms during the fight. There's planes crashing all around us as we paddle through this. Then we're in the skies for one last aerial encounter. Ignore the other planes, they don't matter at all, just beeline for the Baron. He's the only one we need to take out for the win. When he's at low enough health, he calls in his gunships, and Bentley takes the blimps out in spectacular style.
Sorry, Baron, but you'll have to fight fair this year.
What? Who is this? How did you find this frequency? What? No, this is... Oh, my commander!
He's got to fight fair this year. The Baron, instead, jumps onto a massive 747 style plane, and we try to tell him we've won, but he retorts, technically, we're both still airborne, and so we need to fight the man on the wing of his plane. He's actually a very accomplished boxer, and so you'll have to wait till he overextends to hit him, or he'll just counter-shot us, and he does a lot more damage than we do. He has goon backup, but even that's not good enough as we take him out, knocking off his mask and revealing, in a shock twist, he's none other than Penelope herself in disguise. She's been posing as the Baron for whatever reason, and she's kind of relieved to not have to keep the act up. She then talks to us on the ground before closing out the chapter. Before we get a chance to talk, we're rushed to the winner's circle, and Bentley and Penelope have a bit of an awkward moment after the catfishing online, her seeming more interested in Sly. The Baron disguise was invented to get past some strict flight competition age limits, though she'd built up enough celebrity to be trapped in that role. With the Baron gone, she's free to join the gang, and for us to get to my favourite chapter in Sly 3. I found it really interesting looking back on the villains in this game, that so far, we had one that had a good ending, one that was a mask, and then one that just joins the gang. They go with a lot more variety in this game than they did in the previous, and it's something to note. But anyway, Chapter 4. Chapter 4 focuses on the gang's need for a demolitions expert. Bentley alone won't cut it this time, despite having some experience with bombs. The big twist is the candidate he proposes in his place, our old enemy from Sly 1, the Panda King. Responsible for killing Sly's father and an area boss in the game, we left him defeated and ruined, and Sly is strongly against this recruit. But Bentley says he's left his life of crime behind, going into meditation in the mountains, and he has all the skills we'll need, but surely the bad blood can't be settled, right? We're trusting Bentley massively here as the gang heads to China. I didn't see this pick coming as a kid, but I was so glad we got to revisit a cool area and a very cool character. The gang pull up to the Kunlun Mountains to see the Panda King deep in meditation. He's so deep, in fact, that shouting up to him's ineffective. Sly's very suspicious of the guy, despite Bentley being calm about things. Sly even offers for us to leave China at the first hurdle. We need to get most of the team up to the shrine to communicate with him, and Murray brings up that he misses the team's van. It'd probably be quite helpful. Lost in Basson's levels back in Sly 2. That'll be important, just forget about it for now. Murray gets up by bouncing in his ball form, so okay, maybe it has become his gimmick in this game. When he's up, Penelope clears a path for Sly using her RC car's mounted turret to make some climbing points for him. Her and Bentley chat about this solution, and he praises her for her brains, but she's still clearly more interested in Sly to his disappointment.
Split each chute down the middle, thereby doubling the points of ascension. However, the ice down there appears too thin to walk on, so there's no way to do it by hand. So, I'll need to use my lightweight remote control car to split the trees for us.
Perfect! That's it, exactly!
Great! Anything for Sly. I love to see him pull off those athletic moves.
He gets up and clears a path for the Guru and himself, weirdly leaving Penelope behind. She's dead to Bentley after that Sly comment. The Guru channels Sly into the Panda King's mind, and we encounter him in a very similar scene, the boss room from the first game. Updated graphics for the surroundings, but the old outfit for the king himself. He's repeating the dialogue from that fight, and despite Sly's new dialogue, he's not snapping out of it. We repeat sections of the fight with the buttery delivery of his flame fu moves as we try to reason with him using a choice of dialogue options. Nothing works besides making him upset by bringing up his past defeat, that we've ruined him, his name as well, but wanting to talk to him now that both of them have changed and a lot of time has passed, that maybe they can meet as they are today and let go of the past bad blood in a rather grown-up turn for our cocky cat burglar. King isn't very excited about joining the gang, but thanks to him hitting it off with the guru, he's willing to entertain us. He's had his daughter kidnapped by a powerful general of the Northern Mountains. He's lost a family member, just like Sly now. She's going to be put in a forced wedding, and with Panda King exiled, she's defenseless. We agree to help him rescue Jing King in exchange for his demolition skills. As the chapter name puts it, we're in a cold alliance. We start with a slideshow. Jing King is being kept against her will by General Sao, with Bentley even bringing up that during surveillance he watched Sao kick a puppy, twice. He's a bad dude. Bentley's going to approach him in disguise to be a man on the inside in the form of a wedding planner. He's also going to need to invest in some new tech to get a look at Sao's place of business and hack his stuff up. There's a weird radio signal too, which we'll be investigating in the first round of missions. We're not leaving anything up to chance, or Jing King could potentially be lost to us. Let's start with the signal first, actually. Murray goes out and sees an old friend. The team van. It's somehow floated all the way from Canada over here to the mountains of China. Both he and Penelope need to work together to get his baby back. If she can get it back, she'll earn shotgun privileges for life. We need to use her Yank 86 to pull the big block of ice over to the shore where Murray is, and there's some guards taking pot shots at us, but we move unconventionally enough that you can reduce their aim to stormtrooper levels getting through here. With the van at the shore, Murray tries to defrost it using his fists, attracting so much guard attention that Penelope calls for him to retreat. This van and Murray's love for it is like the love someone would have for a child, and he's refusing to retreat.
But I can't lose her again!
Forget the van, you'll never make it!
But no! No! Either help me or get out of my way! I'm bringing her home!
Penelope has a little bit of fuel left in her chopper, so we can clear the way partially for him by throwing guards into the cold drink while he tugs the thing back to the safe house. But he eventually gets stuck behind some spikes, and both Bentley and Penelope are now begging him to save himself. Panda King overhears this over the comms, and the words parallel his own thoughts, talking about,
I will not! I will never leave her behind again!
Words do tear at a father's heart. Would that I had such passion when they came from my little Jing King. Fear not, brave hippo. I will destroy the spikes blocking your path.
Be careful with those...
daughter. Panda King comes to the rescue, destroying the spikes in Mary's path and taking out goons using a mounted firework turret. The way he speaks about Murray during this section gets me emotional too. He really cares for Murray and his struggle, and it might seem silly to a lot of people watching, but it really resonated with me as a fellow Cooper gang lover. It made me believe he could work with the team and that he had turned over a new leaf. When he gets back, he and Panda King get to debrief, friends now and seemingly vibing on a level the rest of the gang could only wish for with their shared struggle. We're going to go for the centre of business hacking next. Firstly, we need to pickpocket a set of twin keys simultaneously from two guards, or one's going to report to the other, and then one key will get destroyed. Sly and Bentley steal them at the same time using the power of radio contact, then they meet at Sal's place of business, and we're going to use a bit of new tech we bought from the power-up shop called the grapple cam to lure some guards around. We've got an FPS grapple with the ability to distract guards using a speaker, and we have to lead two guards to two pressure plates. If we're spotted, they'll shoot at the camera, but we can just throw it out again. Sleep dart them both, and then Bentley can begin hacking into Sal's database. Bentley calling himself a capital G genius. We avoid Carmelita's presence as we hit the trigger for the next mission, and it seems she's been following us around. This time, we're going to try and become a wedding planner. Bentley goes in with his China disguise, and we enter to what we can hear as Sal being very mean to his new fiancée. He's not a good dude. He's actually quite insulted of the idea too of anyone thinking he needs a wedding planner due to his self-imposed massive intellect. He's interested in getting a photographer though, and if he's world-class enough, he'll get the job. Of course, we send Sly out with his camera, and we don a new photographer disguise, convince a few guards into posing for some photos. All of these are of course couples photos, and at a point Sly implies Sal is after some happy photos, the implication being pose a bit gay for the camera. Sal's model is also a bit weird when we go to greet him, scaling depending on how close we are. I don't know why, but it's probably something to do with this being a photo mission. Anyway, we take enough photos to impress the man, and he's happy with our work, and we've now got a man on the inside. As with one round of missions being completed, we're treated to another slideshow, only this time it becomes clear that Sal has stolen the ThiefNet computer from the safe house, including the whole plan for the heist. It's all compromised. The priority now is to steal back the computer. As much as Sal seemed like a bit of a meathead, he's actually a lot craftier than we've given him credit for. Bentley goes into his palace, smashing things up, trying to find a computer without much stealth to it, to do a bit of hacking in the hopes of tracking down our laptop. It's quite strange he's not at the palace in the present, so maybe Sal's elsewhere. The hacking is pretty normal, except for when we encounter Sal's defense avatar. It's a bit of a hacking boss, but it's also voiced by the man. Bentley finds a diary entry citing a secret passage through a prayer bell and a walk across the heavens. It's weirdly supernatural sounding, and so we bring the guru just to be safe. Going under the bell with the little koala, we're teleported into the mountainside, and we have a very cool visual section, walking across the heavens as it were, with the guru on our back, and the spiritual energy so strong in this place that he can make us a floating path across the whole zone, using bits of scenery and the guards themselves as stepping stones. It's exceptionally weird, and it shows the usefulness of our new telekinetic specialist. We cross the heavens, as it were, leaving the guru to rest as we push into a nearby bamboo field, and it's actually a very climactic battlefield as we come face to face with Sal himself. He congratulates Sly for being able to follow the trail that he's left for us, and it really undermines our efforts of having got there. He gives a little speech about the stupidity of friendship when you can have servants and people worshipping you, and then we're on some ancient battlefield in some sort of kung fu movie switch, where we have to fight Sal whilst being able to soar across the bamboo field by jumping. We need to dodge his attacks and hit him while he crosses the field by going at him side on. It's all very final boss macho. When phase 1 is done, we go down to the ground floor with him, and he says he needs Jin King to combine their honoured bloodlines and create a generation of conquerors. Of course, he's talking about her like she's some sort of object. He starts using black arts on us too, summoning spiritual dragons and the undead themselves, and again, another little delve into the supernatural for the series. We need to dodge his attacks and come at him when he's overextended, a bit like the Baron fight. There's a cheese strat that I learned after filming this, where you could spam one special attack and juggle him, but I never got a chance playing it. When he's defeated, after a very long and arduous battle, he admits we've won, but we've only won the battle, not the war. He throws the computer at us and warns us off coming for Jin King and to beware the family Zhao.
Beware the power of Tao.
With the laptop back, we can get to planning the big heist, the old plan compromised. For this heist, we need to go further than just stealing his fiancée. We need to use the van to steal all of his treasure too, really stick it to him. We need to get a new battery to fix the van and sort this. And before the wedding, we need to even the odds, as he's updated his security. We're talking vampires, spectral dragons, the works that we'll need to deal with. We're going to start with the vampires here, and there's a ton of fancy explosives stashed around the place for the wedding, all fireworks. We want to use these to blow up Sal's vampire pal's crypt to get them off the streets and away from our schemes. At this point, Sly doesn't trust King, but the two will need to work closely. Panda King actually has one of the most interesting segments of this game as he talks with his younger self in the mirror, the personification of his rage and his need for revenge. We have a little choose your own dialogue as the two argue, and he needs his mind in one piece before we can actually move on to action anything. His hateful side wants Cooper gone and to restore control over his body so that he can take over stealing Jin King back single-handedly. It's only about by asking humility and studying Cooper that the two can join as one cohesive form, the yin and the yang.
Is a teacher of humility. We have slain his parents, yet he manages to trust us. By studying him, we will become whole. I have no desire to join with my weaker side. And the yang? If strength were all that mattered, Sao would be an ideal son-in-law. Very well. Cooper shall live.
We actually play as Panda King, and he hits a weird line saying he's not planning on killing Sly. Panda King's melee uses his fiery chop, which will mulch most enemies, and he can also load fireworks into his backpack to do a bit of a heat-seeking missile maneuver. He's a combat master. We follow Sly around protecting him from the vampires roaming the streets, using our fireworks to take them out in big swaves. If you try and go for melee, they explode in your face and do a load of damage. It's the first mission the two have directly shared, and a step forward in their relationship as Panda King covers Sly and earns his trust. We take out the vampire's crypt, and we get the best ending line from a mission so far.
The deed is done!
We then have a secret plan to get this battery charged up for the van. Carmelita manages to interrupt Bentley and Sly talking and starts chasing Sly around, zapping him. This, of course, is playing right into Bentley's hands and charging the battery. When he's unconscious, she calls in to make the arrest and we sneak away right under her nose, bringing the battery to a few points to let off some excess charge and stabilise it. We have to dodge Carmelita and several goons as we do this, eventually plugging it in and making sure the van's ready for the heist. Mary and Penelope then go to hack Sal's phone lines, and Mercules cracks open the box containing the hard points, but gets knocked out by a trap. He's tied up and taken to the highest peak with a trail of gunpowder signalling the very long and drawn out fateful end for the hippo. All, as Sal says, is according to tradition. We use Penelope's RC car to race the lit fuse to Murray, fighting spectral dragons on the way. We make a very, very pinpoint rescue, as you'll see here. With that, we're ready for the heist, and it's a long one this time. This one involves the whole gang as you'd expect, and there's a lot of shifts in perspectives, but now is the time to clear Sal's coffers and to get Jing King free in Operation Wedding Crasher. Firstly, Murray and Penelope need Sly's help to get into the treasure building. He climbs inside and heads off to meet the Panda King and the Guru once they're in, leaving them on their own. There's a security computer in a heavily laser-covered room that we need to sneakily drive the RC car through to try and hack on the other side. There's no timer, and you can be as careful as you want. After destroying the computer, the lasers don't deactivate as expected, and Penelope thought there should only be one computer. It turns out there's a second. We don't know where it is, and if it boots up, we're busted. Murray gives us some sage advice that if something goes wrong, get to smashing. And we then have to backtrack through the room, destroying all the security nodes we avoided on first entry to try and overload the system. With those out of the way, the two get into the vault itself, though the foundations are rotted out. Murray does a cannonball into the pile of treasure, making it all fall out of the building and kinda taking us off script. But it's at that point we cut back to when Sly left them.
Always a slave to the schedule, that's me.
He needs to enter the palace while the Panda King and the Guru dig beneath. Importantly, he leaves a calling card outside the door. Turns out the vases in the palace aren't decorative, but are actually a Chinese security device to discourage underground thieves. If people dig below, the vases will topple over and smash. We need to stop the vases becoming unbalanced and toppling over whilst the two dig. They get directly underneath the bridal chamber, mere inches from Jing King, as we cut to Bentley and his part of the plan. He needs to lure Carmelita to the front of the palace, right to the calling card we left, and we do this using the grapple cam and its nifty speaker. When she gets to the palace, she spots the card and enters, encountering Sly in a General Sao costume, just as we rescue Jing King. We loudly announce we're stealing the bride at the wedding and the whole gang will be there, just so that Carmelita hears it. Her jealousy and police senses lead her to take Jing King's place, ready to give them a bit of a shotgun wedding. All the digging has disturbed Sal's meditation, and he decides to head to his massive treasure temple to meditate there. We cut back to the present, with Mary and Penelope falling out of it, in fact causing the whole building to come off the cliff it's perched onto, right as Sal watches. He's suitably pissed as you'd expect. He summons the stone dragon of the temple in a very supernatural moment.
The outrage! Stone dragon of the temple, I summon you from rock to flesh! Aid the family Tao in this hour of need!
It grabs Penelope and blasts Mary off the cliffs. Sal cries out that his lineage surpasses Sly's and heads off. We use some mounted fireworks planted for the wedding to fly up to the dragon and give it a bit of cane to face action. With it defeated and the treasure stolen, we've beaten Sal, even if he doesn't know it yet. He still believes he has Jing King, even though we know he doesn't. We close out the chapter with the gang fleeing in the van, and the wedding goes as expected, at least for us. I have no clue how Sal couldn't tell the difference between a fox and a panda, but Carmelita arrests Sal for the vampire raising business, and the team drop off Jing King with her aunt, right as her father pays off his debt to the gang. Sly is still a bit sus about him, but his expertise is proven as the gang gains a demolitions expert, and we move on to our penultimate chapter. It's time to cash in that favour Dimitri's owed back in Holland. Woo yeah, baby. More greasy sweet Dimitri. He's booked the team passage to a place called Bloodbath Bay, where a bunch of criminal hermits start being pirates. His grandfather was a pioneer in deep-sea diving, it turns out, and at one point or another had his loot and his expert diving gear stolen by a pirate named Blackspot Pete. Dimitri needs us to go to Bloodbath Bay and recover the gear. Simple stuff, right? Also, look at the gang's disguises here. I nearly spat my tea everywhere. A plus side to running errands for Dimitri is we might actually end up with a frogman for the heist job, something that could come in value. Welcome to Sly Cooper Free Black Flag. There's this lovely sea shanty music on the background as we cross the roofs of Bloodbath Bay. Come face to face with Black Spot Pete himself. Sly's going to speak to him and try to earn his trust, though he refuses to speak about the matters of treasure with anyone but his partner Cantankerous Tim. There's not a lot of trust for landlubbers around here. It turns out Cantankerous Tim is dead. His uniform split up among the sea dogs and bilge rats who mutinied on him. This first mission has us gathering bits of Tim's costume from these guards. Our first one, Stone Jake, has a thing about monkeys, and we need to lure him underneath an anchor to get rid of him and take back part of the costume. He's too tough to take out conventionally. Turns out he was holding onto Tim's eye patch. The next piece, a peg leg, is being worn currently by one of the pirates. He's guarded by a few sea dogs. We need to pick them off one by one before we can get to his leg, but thanks to the silent obliteration power-up, there's no fiddling around trying to distract them first. We pickpocket the screws from his peg leg, leaving him de-legged and, well, dead. Next up is Twitchy Ned, hiding out in a crow's nest with the knowledge that someone's going around taking out lieutenants. We have to chase him across the bay whilst he runs through guards and various traps to try and slow us down. Catching up to him, he just gives us the pirate hat, and then we've got a full pirate disguise. I've no clue how Sly gets the leg on and off though. We speak with Tim again, and this time he wants to play Vinegar Talk with us. A few rounds of firing insults off at each other without accidentally repeating an insult that's already been said. It's a nice little minigame using the dialogue chooser, and it's a fairly entertaining expansion on that mechanic. He tells us he buried the treasure on Dagger Isle, but he lost his galleon in a game of cards, and a terror named Captain Lafouille has taken the map to the island, so he can't help us. Lafouille is known as the smartest man on the Seven Seas, apparently a devil living in Skull Keep, and Pete outright refuses to help us with this. At least we know who our target is though. Slideshow time. We need both the map and a boat to get to the island, and also to disable any security measures that will stop us getting out to sea. Case closed. Let's start with the map. Bentley and Penelope work together on a romantic beachside mission, and he plants the seed that he's jealous about Sly being the object of her affections. We're using her hover spectrometer to scan Skull Keep for any sign of chests. Of course, the skittish locals don't like flying saucers.
Ah, well, best to shoot first and ponder later.
The pieces are strewn about the bay, and they will destroy themselves if someone tries to pick them up. But by using Penelope's RC car, we can scan the pieces without actually picking them up to get the data. It turns out there's a big chest near the top of the place, and so the two head out together. The actual car segment quite short. Lafouille, the smartest man on the Seven Seas, had lifted his drawbridges after seeing the flying disc. Bentley determines there must be an escape route handy after fighting against so many people like this. Penelope misinterprets this as Sly has taught him a lot. Bentley gets caught being a bit jealous though.
Sly? We're a team. In case you haven't noticed, I'm the brains of the operation. He's just the field man.
Just the field man? Sounds like you're jealous.
Well,
Penelope does bring Bentley's spirits up as they both go and look for a back entrance to the keep. There's a bit of wheelchair platforming as they bomb their way in through the back and get to the top of the keep itself, spotting Lafouille from around a corner. He's a bit of a ruthless parrot, killing his first mate for giving his own opinion. The guards are actually too scared to call on him for assistance if there's trouble, and so that works out good for us. We can take them out manually. You can get some good shots off with your sleep darts to make this easier, but otherwise it's just a normal combat section. Going through one of the countdown door locks, they encounter the most trapped chest this side of the Seven Seas. Bentley heads back to get Penelope's toolbox after she sounds confident, and we leave her to study it more. She gets it open while we're away, but some sort of irritant blinds her and she falls out of the keep. We refit our grapple cam with the RC car's turret in an emergency and use it to lead her back with a series of bird calls and of course some turret support. When she gets back, she thanks him for saving her and stopping her from being scared, and it's probably the first step we see into the two growing closer together. It's like Love Island. We then cut to what Sly and Mary were up to, disabling a load of boat rudders and getting rid of harbour security to stop anyone stopping us rowing away. We use a boat that operates similarly to the one in Holland, but with a big cannon on the front, taking out the rudders on 4 ships and then dealing with some harbour patrolmen by charging into their boats to chip their armour and finishing them off with some well-placed cannon fire. A galleon comes in to back them up, and slightly unexpected, but we just have to take its sail out with the cannon, obviously avoiding any returning fire they give us. Chalk one up to the power of friendship. Now we actually steal a boat. Every thief dreams of stealing a pirate ship, and we need to be extra sneaky or all the pirates will come out to stop us. We silently row up to the galleon and then have to stealthily take out the guards or it's a complete mission fail. The crew get into the boat and we raise sail. Now for actually controlling the boat, we use our L2 and R2 buttons to turn it while Sly moves independently on the boat. It takes him getting used to at first, but eventually we're out on the open water. The overworld changes completely now, instead having us on this stylized boat riding screen. We can pull up a map to reveal our quest markers, and the idea is to avoid getting into too many skirmishes or driving too close to the coast. When we do get into ship combat, we need to orientate the ship while shooting our cannons at the enemy, and there's some strategy here where we can do extra damage by being perpendicular as we fire. The cannonball travels the length of the boat. And obviously, we need to avoid our ship getting busted too. When we do enough damage to a ship, we can either board it or sink it. When we board it, we have to fight a mini-boss captain, but the rewards are stacks of gold, like you get silly money doing this. And there's a whole ranking system depending on how many ships you take out, and it's quite a fun little side gig, but probably comes a little bit late in the game to take full advantage of all these coins you're going to get. We get to Dagger Isle and put down our anchor in search of buried treasure there, and we use the map like a power-up, following its instructions to walk so many paces in certain directions, eventually leading us to Dimitri's grandfather's diving gear. The gang come to land to open the chest, and Dimitri is reunited with his family heirloom. There's tons of loot too, but before we get any, Lafouille manages to sneak up on us, capturing Penelope. He seems to take a liking to her, and there's no way we can try and steal her back right now or he'll kill her. Without any options, we give him the gold and begin planning our heist to save our RC expert. As we know by now, every good plan starts with a slideshow. Lafouille has gone back to the bay with Penelope as his captive, and there's no way to sneak back there when security's so high. We're going to use Dimitri to salvage some cannon upgrades from sunken ships, destroy some mercenaries on Lafouille's payroll, and finally we'll look for a sea monster in the mist. I'm going to gloss over large amounts of the travel and pirate combat here for the sake of shortening an already massive video. The diving mission. It starts with a bit of a slang off between Bentley and Dimitri, and I love how he tries to talk in the dialects of whoever he's addressing. He did it with the Panda King, he did it with the Guru, and now it's Dimitri's.
Cool, Daddy-O. How about you take your pimp self down beneath the H2O and get nasty with the scuba? Yo, with bling.
When we're under the water, the controls are actually quite rough, using the action buttons instead of the D-pad to swim in cardinal directions. It's quite scuffed. Dimitri does have a harpoon gun too, which comes in handy against some of the sharks down here. We find some blast collars and then hunt some hammerhead sharks before we're out of the water. It was an interesting gimmick, but it just felt weird in action. I wasn't a big fan. The Red Sea Dog clan goes down as a series of ship fights against 1, 2 and 3 boats in separate instances. It's not that eventful, but quite fun when you're actually playing it. I've got a lot of love for the boat combat in this game. And then the sea monster is the golden spoon for best mission of this chapter. We sail into the mists looking for the mythical Crusher, a monster that all the pirates are scared of. We're going to track it down to discover why the pirates fear the thing. Of course, it finds us first, and we need to use the Panda King and this massive multi-tiered boss fight against it. Panda King is always a highlight in this game. The tentacles of the giant squid can appear anywhere around the boat, and we need to use our fireworks to hit them before they home in on us. Eventually, the thing shows its head, and Panda King goes off.
So, you now choose to face me. Behold the Panda King, your master!
There's more firework combat here as we dodge exploding shots and more tentacles, culminating in a section where the monster tries to capsize us and we need to stop its sticky tentacles from pulling us in one direction more than the other. It shows up again with more Panda King dialogue.
Rise and let me punish you!
Eventually, it flees beneath the waters just as we run out of fireworks. Panda King summons Sly as he runs under deck to hurriedly craft more of these fireworks. Sly then needs to smack the creature's tentacles to get them stuck to the boat. When it comes into range to pull them off, we shoot some close-range cannons at it. Rinse, repeat until we manage to knock it out and leave it reeling for the gang to comment. We then use the guru to get inside the monster's head, him and the creature going away to sea once we've got control of it. From there, we're ready for Operation Reverse Double Cross. We know Penelope is either in the brig of the Death's Head or in Skull Keep. Because we've only got a small team, we can't target both at once, instead relying on a bit of sleight of hand, so let's get into it. Firstly, we sail back to the bay and take our battle stations. The plan here is to take the mast off Lefui's vessel without sinking it in case Penelope's aboard. A bit risky, but the hope is it pays off. It works like a normal ship combat, but against a slightly stronger ship. Sly then jumping aboard and instantly getting captured by a ship filled with over 100 pirates. But don't worry, it is going to plan. We don't know where Penelope is, and so we need to work that out, and the plan is to get Lefui angry enough as he tries to walk us down the plank that he lets slip where she is. We've a choice of different dialogue options, from his creativity to insulting his pirate talk, to even just talking about how unattractive the guy is. He lets slip she'll never escape Skull Keep, and we jump off the ship into Mary's boat, sailing dead to Skull Keep to rescue the girl. Of course, getting into the jail of the keep, nobody's there, and it's just a doll that looks like Penelope with a big bundle of dynamite attached to it. Maybe Lefui has earned the title of smartest man on the 7 seas, but I suppose that was before Bentley took to the waters. He pilots the ship towards the mouth of the keep and lets Lefui take our mast, drawing him into deeper waters, the perfect position for the guru to strike with Crusher. Lefui played straight into Bentley's hands as we now play as a giant squid, protecting Bentley while he's trying to free Penelope from the brig. She comes out in a lovely pirate dress to her turtle saviour. Bentley offers a straightener out with Lefui, and when Sly glides in to grab Penelope, Bentley is knocked down, with the guru having to save Sly from drowning. And in a weird twist of fate, it's actually Penelope that comes to Bentley's rescue. She even puts Lefui down with the whole Bentley's smarter than him angle. We've got a weird sword fighting section here where we need to dodge Lefui's attacks and riposte him when he tries to taunt us, eventually knocking him into the drink below. He dies getting eaten by sharks, calling himself the smartest man on the 7 seas. In the outro cutscene, everyone is praising Bentley for not only outsmarting Lefui, but also getting himself a girlfriend. Him and Penelope were made for each other. Dimitri's happy with the diving gear, and he tells the gang he's going to be their frogman, not that anyone even asked him to be. For the first chapter, Carmelita hasn't been seen, and we've got a gang ready for the vault job. As this game has been a flashback so far, the vault itself is like one continuous mission after the intro section, and it's really exciting. One last stretch, and you'll know everything that happens in the Sly Trilogy. Now, who's with me? All the memories bring Sly back to the same place, being crushed in the paw of some mutant. Sly is filled with his life's regrets. What was in the vault? Will he ever get to know? Would he have measured up? Would his father be proud of him or ashamed? He's also got some strong thoughts about Carmelita.
Funny, but here I am at the end, and suddenly all I can think about is what a coward I've been towards Carmelita. I never took the next step. Looking at Bentley and Penelope, it's clear what life is about. If Carmelita was here, I'd tell her straight out how I feel, and quit playing around. Put our professional differences aside and see if we can make it work. But that'll never happen now. I can't take this crushing.
Just as Sly thinks he's about to be crushed to death, the cartoon ends and the chapter begins properly, with Sly's cane flying off into the distance over the top of Carmelita, and her Interpol goons pulling up to the island on a big D-Day people carrier. The apes take to the skies, and Carmelita begins her rescue on Sly in a boss fight against the creature. Funny that when he was just hoping for a chance to see her, she shows up. The creature is exceptionally strong, actually pulling up parts of the island as cover as more mutants come in to reinforce. Nothing can stop Carmelita and her shock pistol, however, as the beast is at least temporarily subdued, and Carmelita gets a chance to talk to the main monkey himself, Dr. M. He's suitably mad that the police are invading his island home, and Carmelita is looking to prevent an attempted murder here. She offers to settle things with a conversation, but M does not trust the police. He doesn't trust anyone, as he tells his creature to throw Carmelita, and a second phase begins on her gunship off-screen while M gloats. The gang manage to get Sly aboard the pirate ship in this time. He's battered but still alive. There's a slight pause as Bentley takes the helm on the heist, and the gang has seen where the cane has landed, but the buoy that it's on top of will draw in anything metallic. The only one who can approach is the guru. As the only member of the team to have no metal, he's instructed to convince some local sharks into attacking the buoy, and we jump from shark to shark to get them under our control. There's automated marine defences in action as well. Basically, mines and traps will come out of the water at semi-random intervals to stop us. We can get around those with some precise jumping. When all of the sharks latch onto the buoy, the cane goes hurtling into the sea, and we've got our trusty frogman to go and scoop it up from the sea floor. The guru's disappointed he couldn't grab the cane, but Bentley reassures him as we get ready to get wet and wild. I mean that too. Dimitri lays it on thick with Penelope, while Sly's being tended to. It's quite funny as it unfolds, as Penelope has zero interest in him at all.
Bone in a swimsuit?
Come clean, man. Let me play your cards straight. These are dangerous waters, and I'm a big, strong, macho man.
The cane goes hurtling into a nearby whirlpool once we're underwater. We have to avoid some giant pincers by swimming in the opposite direction. They left it a bit late to introduce sprint swimming and a stamina system, but I still dig it. It culminates in a boss fight with Dr. M attached to some deep sea creature. What I love about Dr. M is the wacky animals he uses against us. It's the first example of mutants and weird amalgamations in the Cooper series, and I remember drawing up all sorts of combos as a kid, sadly. The fight looks a little bit weird, like one of those arcade shooters you'd get at a bowling alley, and to make it worse, Dr. M makes off with the cane. Our frogman gets some reassurance from Penelope, and then tries to lay it on thick again, before getting rebuffed by our RC expert. Sly gets up, despite needing to be in bed from all the thrashing he's taken, and he's told about M having the cane, and is suitably shocked, telling the crew they've got to move. Some radar towers are stopping our advance, and Panda King is just enjoying his all-inclusive holiday at this point, as he sends Penelope's car flying onto a track she'll use to take out the radar towers by destroying some automated drones and then charging through them. It's suitably cinematic. With the towers down, Sly's ready to get back into the fight for his family's legacy, tired of watching his friends do it for him. There's 14 turrets we need to take out in a similar fashion to the dogfights from earlier in a Spyro-esque flying sequence. That then turns into you having to take out flying mutants in a similar fashion, to then a quite visually impressive, if a bit mechanically boring, boss fight against a flying whale piloted by Dr. M. He's got so many weird and wonderful creatures to throw at us, and this one has mounted air defences to boot. The plane proves ineffective as we decide to just paraglide on top of the creature instead, and we get some big reveals here. Turns out M has a relationship with Sly's father. He was the brains of his gang, in the same way Bentley is for the current Cooper gang. He calls Bentley the gang's real leader and plants a little seed of doubt. Is Sly using his friends, or does M just misunderstand the situation? Maybe he's gone completely loco. Sly calls Bentley in response to this.
Bentley, you there?
Yeah, pal?
I'm about to head inside the vault, and I want you and Murray to come with me. We're a team, a family. We should do this together.
Okay, be right up, partner.
Nice! We'll have the Panda King give the van a boost! Stay clear, Sly! We're about to get off!
The fuse is lit!
Buckle up, Bentley!
The van comes flying up to the vault, and the Cooper gang can find the seat of Sly's legacy, right inside. The place is an archaeological marvel, but there's a broken bridge that only Sly can cross as he advances on his own, leaving his pals to hold down the fort. Inside is something cooler than you can imagine. Each member of the Cooper clan since the Egyptian times had been adding to this place. Not only is there mountains of gold, and I mean that in the most literal sense, but there's memorials to each of the prolific members, starting with Sly Tutankhamun, with a little bit of bio on each one, and of course their tools of the trade buried with their wealth. Salim al-Kupar, the man with the stealth of 40 thieves, having some cane scimitar hybrid, for instance. Each of the Cooper members has added to the traps here too, reflecting the skills they'd expect their ancestors to inherit, or would be thematic for the time. This goes from giant stone axes from some of the earlier ancestors, to more high-tech devices such as katanas poking out of walls, or airplane engines going and we have to jump over them. The massive dungeon crawl is very thematically rewarding, not just for Sly, but for the player too, who's followed his legacy and been part of his journey since Sly 1. Eventually, we find Sly's dad's entry, but the challenge is there for a skill we've never learned and wasn't ever written down in the Raccoonus. It's the ability to slide on lasers. I don't think Sly's gone crazy, but he is sliding on lasers. Now this is the move his father would have wanted his son to know, and when we get to the inner sanctum, the perspective shifts from Sly to Murray and Bentley, right as Sly left them. Bentley might have heard what Dr. M said as he starts to talk about if he and Murray are playing second fiddle to Sly. just as M's goons come pouring in and Murray puts things into perspective.
Think of it this way, Bentley. If it were you in that vault and Sly and I were out here, what would he do?
Stop these thugs and protect his friend.
Right, and that's what I'm gonna do. Keep your head down, stay clear. I'm gonna smash a lot of skulls, and I don't want yours to be one of them.
Murray starts smashing goons in an attempt to keep Sly's time with his family vault as alone time. Some of them have some mad moves too, borrowing from Octavia's opera attack just to name one. And when they're all knocked down, M himself comes. He refuses to talk to Murray, only really wanting to talk to Bentley, who he calls his equal, saying they've got no fight with each other and that they're the same. He knows M was Sly's dad's tech man, but the difference between the two is that the current Cooper gang has brotherhood. M tries to call it a tool for manipulation, but Bentley and Murray say it's what keeps them happy. M has that chimp strength and successfully wrestles with Murray, and we need Bentley to put some ancient Cooper security devices on his back to get a laser to shock him. This becomes a bit trickier when his flashlight guards come in, and we need to use the grapple cam to turret them away. Do this enough and M gets shocked off Murray, but he's put a tracker on Sly's cane and manages to be agile enough to get into the Cooper vault away from Bentley and Murray. He's going to use that tracker to navigate through the inner sanctum. We then cut back to Sly hitting the inner sanctum. It's got a few of the old Cooper vehicles hanging from the ceiling and one uninvited guest as M joins Sly, starting a boss fight. Sly says, aren't they meant to banter a little? But M just wants to get straight into it, getting the harshest rebuttal possible.
Aren't we supposed to banter a little?
I only talked with my equals, and Bentley said no.
There's a lot of hitting him with arcane, dodging around, having to cling to him when he flies, or lead elemental orbs off of the fight arena. It's a really tough boss fight, suitably so for the last one of the trilogy, but like all the rest, he will go down. The Cooper vault seeming to collapse around them. They talk about Sly's dad, and he learns the biggest lesson that while he is a Cooper, he's Sly Cooper, an individual. Carmelita crashes the party, and the two flirt while M goes to hurt Carmelita as a final act of vengeance.
Oh, a love interest. I might be beaten, but I'll make you suffer.
Not her!
Sly dives in the way to stop the shot, and we finish the monkey off with some shock pistol action. When Carmelita finds Sly, he can't remember a thing, not just about the place, but anything at all, not even his own name. She then tells him he's her partner, Constable Cooper, and the two get away just as Bentley was about to save them. Bentley being the last one in the inner sanctum, he gives the exit speech. M goes down with the crashing vault, well, the crashing island as a whole. Murray gets the team out of there, and it's bittersweet. As Bentley says, the end of the road always is. He just hopes Sly found what he wanted to in there. They comb the island for him, finding a calling card showing that he doesn't want to be found. And with Sly gone, Bentley and Murray had to step out on their own. A difficult thing when they'd been together since they were orphans. Murray went back to Australia to finish his Dreamtime training, but remained close with Bentley, eventually becoming a pro racer with his unique talents of surviving crashes other people would die from. Penelope stuck around too, as Bentley's new partner in crime, and he's madly in love, and the two of them make a memorable vault for the gang, and a really good couple as well. We pan out to Bentley putting the end of this story into the back of the Thievius Raccoonus, Sly's chapter as it were. He mentions he's building a time machine, but let's leave that for Sly 4 to spit all over. In the ending credits, we get one of my favourite scenes, a few of them actually resolving all of the characters. Dimitri becomes a celebrity skin diver, happy with his grandfather's gear. The Panda King lives 2 doors down from his daughter, screening all of her future suitors, and retiring while he does it. The Guru returned to the Outback and took on some new Dreamtime students, including the band from Octavia's intro cutscene. And what's Sly up to? Well, take a look here. He's living his dream with the love of his life. Bentley even catches him winking at his binocucom, showing the memory loss thing was all an act, but it was his way out of a life of crime. And with that, the trilogy is finished. Put a red bow on it and call it amazing. But what did I think? The trilogy tells a cohesive story of revenge, teamwork, and self-discovery. It manages to do this not just within the individual games, but across the whole meta-narrative. There's several examples here from the quite simple revenge plot of Sly 1 being turned entirely on its head when the gang need to put bad blood aside with the Panda King in Sly 3, or when Dimitri, from Sly 2 in that fact. The teamwork and self-discovery angle also runs through quite nicely, with the gang going from being nobodies to proving their place as master thieves in the first game, to then becoming saviours of the world and actual good guys, and then really drilling down on the characters individually. In Sly 3, Bentley is obviously recently disabled, and it takes him a while to realise he's just as useful, if not more than Sly, even though he can't do any acrobatics. Mary wants to find his spiritual centre, and instead of pulling away, the gang support him, even going to Australia to go do right by him, letting him go of his own accord and then helping him find his guru later on. Sly steps out of his family's shadow in the fight with Dr. M, claiming his individuality. All the while, these characters have the backup of their friends along the way. There's serious character growth throughout, and it makes for an exceptional plot and exceptional games. Sly Cooper is a timeless classic that blends humour, charm, and emotional depth with dubious moral compasses and, well, furries. Over and out, Smooth Brains.
So while this might be the end of our adventures together, it could be the start of something even bigger. Time will tell. Literally. 'Cause I'm building a time machine to find out.